Hey there, We Can't Wrestle podcast listeners. If you haven't noticed, we have switched our server to Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So go ahead, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Highly recommended by me and everybody else here at the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
Hey, this is a national treasure and the real world's champion, Nick Aldis. And just when you thought that every possible wrestling podcast name in the world was taken, Nate comes in with a clinch with the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Based on Nate's unbelievable level of praise for me, I would go ahead and say that Nate sounds like a knowledgeable, smart, trustworthy human being, and his expertise should be lauded and appreciated by all of the listeners of the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
You're listening to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Now it's time for our host, Nate Maxson.
Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 111 of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Nate Maxson, your host, here with you, and of course, I am joined by Aaron.
Hey.
Kyle Army.
111 episodes.
Yeah, 111. And this time around, we are joined by a special guest, a guy who's been on the show before and is also our co-host on the 2300 pod. It's Mr. Chad Austin of ECW. Chad, welcome to the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
Hey, guys. I don't sound so special considering the fact that I'm on a weekly podcast with you, and I've already been on this show before. Wow.
I guess this week we'll call it the One of Us Can Wrestle podcast. But this week...
One of us have wrestled. Not can.
Didn't mean to presume there. Sorry.
I tried something today that I just realized that I can't do anymore. And that was lock up with somebody. I tried to lock up and I nearly tripped down and fell down the chair. Oh, the beanbag chair. That's my finish. I'm getting tapped out in the beanbag chair.
At least it's a soft landing, I guess. But this week, we are going to be discussing a topic that was very daunting for myself anyway. And I know some of the other guys have said too before we started recording. We're going to talk about who we think are the top 10 bell-to-bell workers in the history of the business. Each of us have come up with a top 10 list. It's great to have Chad as a part of this, seeing as obviously he has been a worker, so he will bring a great perspective to this conversation. And, well, like we were talking about before, you're not going to hear Jim Londos on any of our lists. You're not going to hear George Hackenschmidt, Buddy Rogers. I haven't seen enough Buddy Rogers matches to know. Lou says this is going to be people we've watched on a regular basis in our lifetimes and our generations.
And not knocking any of those people.
No, absolutely not. No. And there are guys there are a couple of guys on my list from the 70s that I've been able to see enough of through YouTube and the network and stuff that I feel qualified to put them on this list. But go ahead, Aaron. You had a thought, I think.
I was just going to say, like, guys like Lou Thez and Buddy Rogers and all those guys like that, we're not discounting what they brought to the business.
No, but there's absolutely no way we can make them an educated part of our conversation.
Yeah, like there was that fucking videotape that you and I used to watch where it was like Buddy Rogers versus Bobby Brown.
Yeah.
And it was like an old school tape, and we had it, and we're like, oh, this was cool shit. And it's funny that it's Bobby Brown. but we're not trying to discredit any of that shit.
No. And if we had
not
some
that
guy
any
that
of
was,
the people that would be upset about that are listening, because anybody that thought Luthez is the best wrestler they ever saw is probably dead. So,
of course, I wrote my list is I consider I'm 48, and I put everybody that had wrestled in the 50 years since I've been alive. Like, because I never seen George Hagen Smith.
yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, guys. I never saw any of them guys. So I consider, since I've been alive, you know, 50 years. That way, it's stuff that I can get tape on, guys.
Exactly.
I can find film on. That I can see stuff. You know, Jim Lundas. I'm not going to look at drawings. You know, artwork. Jim Lundas.
Abe Lincoln might have been the greatest wrestler ever, but I don't fucking know.
I have to go into a cave and look at hieroglyphics of
Yeah.
What about the Egyptian prince? Well, he was great. Back before BC, whoa, they had the BC title. Yeah, so I mean, like I looked at everything. My criteria was quality of work, quality of opponent, quality of time on top, quality of influence, quality of just their whole entire body of work, and how long they've been around. Because there's a lot of guys that you'll be shocked that aren't on my list. And when I ran over my list with Jessica, she was like, "Wow, I can't believe you don't have this guy on your list." And I'm going, "Well, he only lasted 15 years." You know, there's guys that had drew more money in different places than him that lasted for 27, 28 years or whatever. You know,
Right.
Whatever I mean. So it's like I had to take, and literally I did think that it was going to take me like forever to do, but once I started, what I did was, I don't know about you guys, but what I did was I wrote down a whole bunch of names, and then I started Googling, and then Wikipedia and how long they've been around, and then I started thinking about their body of work, because I didn't have time to go on YouTube and watch all of it.
Right.
I started thinking about all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, fuck. I would have never thought about putting this guy on my list. You know? I mean, and there's a whole bunch of guys that I really should have on my list that are on my list, because I just probably one or two of them because I personally just don't give a fuck about them. Fuck.
And just like, and to the way that I kind of came at it was, I watch, of all the people that I've watched, who have I watched that, and I was going more bell to bell. And who are the people that I've watched that I personally have looked at them and said, these guys have the best matches that I watch, even if they're not my favorite wrestlers, you know, from a psychology standpoint in the ring. And when I watch that match, how realistic does it look, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think we all came at it from a different angle, and I think it's going to be a cool round table here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one guy in particular that I could probably throw in the top 6 or 7 that never was a world champion. Never, you know, he drew money, but he was never like. I mean, I guess it's arguably whether it was humongous money or not, but he wasn't never positioned to be the top guy to hold the belt. And I'm going, this guy was a better worker than this guy.
Right.
You know, like when the bell rang, you know, nobody took a power slam, did a power slam better, you know, whatever, you know what I mean? And yeah, there's a bunch of guys that are on my list that wouldn't be on my list if you asked me who I thought personally. You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think,
I mean, unfortunately, I don't have John Cena on my list.
I don't either.
I can't. Jess was pissed off at me. I think she wanted to drive to work like one day and listen to the show and hear me put over John Cena. How great! John Cena.
My wife,
I don't see him.
My wife was mad at me because I didn't have Daniel Bryan on mine. However, she's only watched wrestling since we got together in 2011, so that's her scope, you know. So she was like, "Why isn't Daniel Bryan on there? Daniel Bryan's great, but he's not on my fucking list. It is what it is."
Yeah, make your list.
Yeah, make your list. Her list would be like, you know, Cena, Bryan, Undertaker, yeah. Which I mean, Orton. Nobody not worthy of being on someone's list.
My list is just fucking. It's a steady repeat of Baron Corbin and Kenny Omega.
All right, Kyle, you're fired. Chad, do you want to start us off here?
Log off, Kyle.
With your number
Log
10?
off.
I love you, Kyle.
Well, if you're going to start off with me, which I'm shocked they were going to start off with me, but I have no problem. Like literally, my list was number 1 and 9 others, so I just filled everything else in. But number 10, I wrote I got Bret Hart, and I literally scratched out Bret Hart's name a couple of times and penciled in Nick Bockwinkel.
Mm-hmm.
Which because, I got to scratch Bret off my list now because he was on my list. But that's
okay. I mean, he's in my number 10, so he's probably not your number 10. But yeah, I think Bret Hart, for what he did, the reason why he's so low, because I would have Bret higher. The reason why he's lower on the list is because he was a main eventer in a down period of the business, and a lot of people would blame Bret Hart for that. You know, like, when Bret was on top, they weren't drawing.
Like Jake Roberts?
They didn't give a fuck. Who did he put on top? Nobody was drawing, you know? Mm-hmm. So you can't blame Bret for that. But look what he did in the late 90s.
Oh, and he always had he even though yes, just like Flair, his matches at times there were repetitive spots and stuff, but who doesn't have repetitive spots? He rarely had a bad match. And yeah, the 90s stuff, I mean, he has one of the, we've talked about it on the show before. I personally, his heel run in 97 is my favorite heel run in wrestling history.
And that was more talking than wrestling, right?
Yeah. I mean,
his knee was fucked up and he couldn't work for a long time in 97. Like, people don't think about that, but he was consistently on the show. Mm-hmm. And he was like the mouthpiece for like Davey and Owen and Neidhart. And not that those guys couldn't talk for themselves, but they weren't as good as Bret was. But bell to bell,
that's saying something too.
Yeah, but bell to bell, like when Bret was in the ring, like even if you like take like his knee injury out of there, like when he was in there with Neidhart and they were tagging and all that shit, fucking Bret was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I've never seen a bad Bret Hart match.
No, you're right. I mean, he could, even his what they call quote unquote enhancement matches weren't bad, you know, because he gave the guys just enough to make him look good enough that he had to put up a fight to win.
And even his worst matches are good. Like, and it's half the time it's not his fault. Maybe it's the booking. Like, as an example, the submission match he had with Backlund at WrestleMania 11, that could have been terrible. It was at least passable. I mean, if you wouldn't have had Piper yelling into the microphone every 16 seconds, it may have even been tolerable. But
no, I thought it was good.
Yeah, the match itself, yeah. I mean, Piper annoys the shit out of me in that match, though.
Well, I mean, that's the intangibles. You gotta, you can't have it all. You know what I mean? You can't have it all at this point. But yeah, I thought the match was good, and I remember where I was at when I watched it, and I watched it with a friend of mine who's as much of a fanatic as I am about wrestling, and we both thought that we both loved it. Like Bret did a great job, and you're working Bob Backlund. In 1994?
95.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how easy is that?
And does anybody take a better, like, chest first turnbuckle bump than Bret Hart?
Well, I got to be honest. I stole it. I did. I stole it. I've done it a million times. And that's because I thought, when I thought about it, I realized that's the way you should take a buckle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why would I turn around?
Now we get
Bret
into
took that shit like boom, like he just took it, man. It's fucking great.
I get into the weeds now here because now you fascinate me with a question. Obviously, I want to ask Chad that chest buckle bump. Is that is that, what do I want to say? For you, is that all you, or do you have to trust the guy throwing you into the buckle too? Like, are you able to cushion that if somebody's being rough with that move, or?
It really depends on who the guy is.
Okay.
Because I tell you what, if the guy was like vicious and stiff or rough, whatever, and he threw me in, I would decide on my way to the buckle, I ain't taking this.
Okay.
I ain't doing it because there's no way I can get myself in position. So I'd rather take the traditional back bump,
right,
and do it. But I mean, if the guy set me up, and I would probably tell him ahead of time, I like taking the chest bump because what you do is you throw your arms underneath the ropes when you hit them. You come in, and so you don't really hit it, but then you stop yourself using the ropes, and it just looks so good, and it just makes more sense. Why would I turn around?
Right.
I don't get it. Like, I gotta turn around. I don't know. And if you guys ever want to see, like, in the top 5 best matches that I've ever seen, one of the best matches I've ever seen was Bret Hart versus the Dynamite Kid from Landover. I was there live, but it aired on prime time, and I want to say maybe September of '86 or in the summer of '86. It's on the network.
Yes, I have seen it. Yes, you're right. It may even be on.
Unbelievable.
It may even be on the one of the Bret DVDs too. I think.
I'm not
totally sure. Yeah, I think so.
When I saw that match, I was like, "Holy shit! How did Dynamite survive all this nonsense?" The clothesline, like, I stole the clothesline. I stole my clothesline from Dynamite, who Chris Benoit stole it from. I stole my clothesline from Chris Benoit. That when you throw the guy in, and I always figured the same thing. If I throw you into the ropes, why am I standing in the middle of the ring waiting for you to come off?
Right.
Like, why wouldn't I charge at you? With my arm right there to hit you. So I stole that. But you watch that match and you just go like, how the fuck did Dynamite Kid survive this goddamn match?
Well, we got Bret Hart, which actually he's on my list too. I'll mention that when we get to it. But Kyle, how about you go next, number 10?
So Bret's not on my list.
Okay.
Well, he should be, but that's okay.
However, Owen's on my list.
Owen?
Because I feel that as good as Bret Hart was, Owen was better. Because Bret, and maybe I'm speaking out of line here, but to me, Bret's matches were always the same.
Go ahead.
Owen had the greatness that Bret had. He had the in-ring technician that Bret was, but he had the charisma that Bret lacked.
And I said it. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off. But I said earlier about Bret. I think that he's like Flair in that I think that there's a case that can be made for formulaic matches. But I think that where I'll defend Bret in that is I think that if you look at the actual body of his main event matches, you will see lots of variations and him adapting to lots of different types of opponents. And that's where I'll defend that. If he had an enhancement match, or if he was having a blow off match on Raw that was going to be 10 minutes or whatever, I see what you're saying totally about it being the formula. But you give him, take Austin and Bret as an example. I mean, you give him a 30-minute match that's the main event, and you see the and I'm not trying to cut you off about Owen, but I was just defending the formula of a Bret match.
No, and that's fine. I guess to me, when I see like with Owen, like you can pick up Owen, put him in any position. And tagged with Bulldog, he tagged with Yokozuna. He carried Yokozuna to a lot more matches than probably Yokozuna probably should have had.
He didn't carry Yokozuna. Maybe in the ring.
But
not out of it.
If Owen hadn't passed away, I think he would have been a bigger star than what Bret would have been.
And I am in no way shitting on what you're saying at all. I think Owen was great, but I just, like I said, I think if he's not in my top 10, he was, when I started writing my list, because I be honest, I started with like 50 to 60 guys.
I'm the same way.
And he was in there.
And it was a toss-up between Bret and Owen. And I was like, you know what? Like, I feel like Owen could have the better match with anybody than what Bret. Not that Bret's bad. I'm not saying that Bret's bad at all.
Oh, no.
Like, but I feel like Owen, the fact that he could do the high-flying stuff and everything that Bret really didn't do, he just had an extra layer to his character that Bret didn't have.
That's probably based upon the fact that he had a longer Japanese career than Bret did before he was a star. So he probably learned a lot of that stuff, you know, way before Bret did. But my thing is, I get the whole entire thing about Bret where all his matches are the same. But all his matches are the same at the end. Look at how he gets there. You know, his matches aren't always the same from the lockup. It's always the same from the comeback or the heat spot, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I think Owen is completely representative of the list. But, yeah, I think Bret because I think he started way earlier than Owen.
Right.
Like, I have tape from Georgia of 1980 with Bret on it. So I think he learned from a whole entire different era.
Shit, I didn't even know Bret was in Georgia.
Yeah,
he wasn't a job guy. He was just like a mid guy. He would have a match with the guys, but he would lose. He wasn't a job.
Yeah, he told some story about how like Ole Anderson was like, "Oh, is it going to be Bret or Buzz Sawyer?" And he saw Buzz Sawyer's match and was like, "Oh, let's go with Buzz." That was in his book.
I forgot about that, I guess. Aaron, you have any thoughts?
Bret worked there about 3 months. As far as I know, he was there about 3 or 4 months, somewhere around that time.
Aaron, any thoughts on Owen before you go to your 10?
Well, I think I'm not going to dispute Owen being on the list, but I think Owen is not the I don't want to say it like I think Owen is like Bobby Eaton. Like if you were going to do like a tag team wrestler, it'd be like A1, AB, Bobby Eaton, and Owen Hart.
Yeah, he'd be like the guy like if you were going to pick anybody who could be talented, but not unless he had Jim Cornette as their manager.
Yeah, like he's like,
you know what I mean? Because Owen's great when he has somebody to work with.
Yeah, like
and Owen was great by himself, but yeah, I mean, Owen probably wouldn't even have made probably my top 50. But that's because I have a broader spectrum of people. But I'm not saying it's a bad choice because Owen was awesome. Owen was phenomenal.
Like you know? if this list was best tag team wrestlers ever, Owen would be like in my top 2.
Yeah, the best second guy.
I want, before we get to Aaron's number 10, I want you guys.
He's the cleaner. You know what I mean? Like, you let Bulldog go in there and do his thing. You let Yoko go in there. Sorry.
I want you guys to remember before Aaron, you do your number 10, though. When speaking of Owen Hart, he is the only wrestler that can kick your leg out of your leg. Just for the record.
Yeah, he is.
Aaron, what's your number 10? Or who's your number 10?
Well, he's not necessarily the number. I didn't rate him 1 through 10. I just put 10 guys. So I don't want this to disparage it, but I'd go with Ricky Steamboat.
Okay. Ooh. And Ricky Steamboat is like he's like scratched out like 4 times here on my 10.
You ain't kidding, man. You ain't kidding.
Go ahead, Aaron. You could speak on your guy.
No, go ahead. Say what you're gonna say.
I was just gonna say. I mean, you talk about somebody that. I mean, there's almost. He's one of those guys that, like, if you were going to talk about just this professional wrestler is obviously a fucking athlete. Ricky Steamboat would be that guy. Endurance, match quality. He was the personification, like right up there with Ricky Morton, the personification of a babyface wrestler. And I never saw a bad Ricky Steamboat match, even when his back was fucked up. You know, his late matches with Austin and stuff. I mean, he was always on, and always great. And I will not dispute. Like I said, I mean, I scratched him off a few times. Maybe in the back of my mind, I knew one of you guys was going to have him, so I'll give somebody else a little spotlight. But
I think Steamboat's problem was I had him too on my list, and I crossed him out. Mm-hmm. I think Steamboat's problem was the fact that he took that long break,
right?
Like in the early '80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he would have continued through and did all that, and then, you know, maybe his choice of jumping to the WWE wasn't the greatest time, and I don't know. That's not my decision to make. But it just seemed like he had a whole bunch of missed timing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that, I think that affected him in a bad way, because when he came back, you know, he still heard girls screaming and stuff like that, but it wasn't thousands of girls,
right?
You know, it was dozens of girls.
There's no doubt as far as like overall his career. There's no doubt that them casting him as the family dude, or him wanting to be casted as the family man or whatever, totally hurt him.
Boom in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, just and I'm not knocking Ricky, but I'm just saying there's no doubt. I mean, you can watch it happen. You just watch it happen.
Well, and I think that here's the thing too. When you look at Ricky Steamboat, when he is in, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're in WWE or WCW or wherever he might go. He is surrounded by guys like Ric Flair, guys like Macho,
mm-hmm.
you know, some of the best, and he was still able to carve a name out for himself.
Yes.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
This means
like, I've read before that Steamboat would boxing matches, and the reason he did it was because he wanted to see how you would naturally, as a human being, like
react
if you got punched in the face, you
mm-hmm.
know. So it's like I've never seen a bad Ricky Steamboat match. I think he's great, and I just that's why I put Steamboat on my list.
I don't not agree because it's your list, but yeah. I mean, out of all 5 or 6 boxes that I consider to check the guy in, he fails in like 1 or 2 of them,
mm-hmm.
and it's not because of his ability; it's because of his career decisions.
Yeah,
when he walked away, and that hurt him. Because I mean, literally, when I think of WrestleMania 3, that match, I don't think of Randy Savage.
Right.
I don't think Randy Savage was the star of that match at all. I mean, I'll argue anybody goes, "Oh, did you see Randy Savage?" Well, fuck you and your Randy Savage. You know, Ricky Steamboat had to remember all that stupid shit.
Right.
You know, fuck. Yeah, that's why I think Ricky Steamboat is a complete professional. And yeah, I had him on my list, and he got scratched out a couple times. Plus, he didn't draw money on his own.
That's a good question. I want to ask Chad, being that he is the actual worker and stuff and been in the ring. You know, we've heard a lot of times from a lot of different guys that, you know, they're divided on that match at WrestleMania 3. Some people say it's the greatest match of all time. Others say, well, it was scripted from start to finish. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. But greatest match of all time? No. It took them weeks to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. You know, you give me a couple of weeks with a guy that I thought is the best guy that I could work with. You know?
I'll give you a masterpiece.
I'll put together a match because we can sit down and go, well, maybe we can erase this and we'll do this instead. You think that's better?
Mm-hmm.
You know? We can do all that stuff. I mean, it worked out for the best. Don't get me wrong. You know, because whatever they did worked out for the best. The crowd seemed to love it, and it was a fantastic match. And it goes on in wrestling history, you know, as like one of the greatest matches of all time. But I think Ricky Steamboat basically just went through the motions in that match.
All right, so my number 10 is Dynamite Kid. We've discussed him a little bit.
Damn it, I got to scratch him off my list.
When we talked about Brett, Dynamite Kid, I would say for me, not only just the realism of his matches and his style, but he is also a guy that you can literally say in the business was the first of something. He was someone that, you know, there's a lot of wrestlers that are like other wrestlers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Dynamite was when he was unique in his time, and his matches again were fantastic. And I mean, yeah, granted, the later stages when his back was given out on him and stuff, he had to rely on Davey a little bit, but overall, I don't know that anybody can deny that he's one of the 10 best wrestlers ever.
I mean, if you really, that's the epitome of when you talk about bell to bell.
Mm-hmm. Which is, like I said, that's kind of where I was with mine as far as psychology and physicality and man, I mean, I've never seen a Dynamite Kid match that didn't, I guess I'll say this, didn't look like a shoot. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I've watched like the 3-round matches and shit that he'd have with like Rollerball Rocco in England or whatever, and they're fucking fantastic. And it's super believable. And I know that he and Tiger Mask had great matches in Japan, but if you watch that fucking match that they had in like, what was it, 82 in Madison Square Garden?
Yeah.
Like, those people in that audience were sitting there at the start of it and they were like, we don't know what we're going to see. But when they really kicked it off, they were just like, Jesus Christ, this is fucking fantastic.
These are people that have been watching Bruno for 20 years.
Yeah, and they were just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, if
you could have brought that match back 2 more other times without having a stipulation of a lumberjack or a cage or whatever. They could have went 10 minutes the first month there. And the way you saw the people react, they could have brought it back with a 15-minute time limit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they could have won and did it again. Then they could. All right. Well, now we're going to go to a 30-minute time limit.
Yeah.
So you pretty much could have dragged 4 matches out of that, and it's not even the main event. It's a supportive role. It's an undercard match, and the people would have been like, "Yeah, I'll watch this shit."
Yeah.
Because when I saw it, I was like, God damn, these guys are good.
Yeah, you want to tell any, I don't want to talk about like modern product stuff too much, but you want to take any modern product wrestler now and say, hey, how can we do this athletic flippy shit, but make it believable? Just tell them to watch that fucking match. It's 10 goddamn minutes, but it's fucking fantastic.
You are correct, sir.
Winner, chicken dinner. Kyle, anything on the Kid before we go to Chad's number 9?
He is the kind of that we were talking before we went on the air about Gorgeous George, how he, influenced a lot of guys as far as like how to be the egotistical heel and stuff. Dynamite Kid showed people how to do technical wrestling and brought it to a new level. Mm-hmm. Because gone were the days of, like we were talking about, like George Hackenschmidt, where it's a fucking rest hold for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like you don't get the hammerlock, the reversal. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I believe it.
You don't get to. We were talking, before we came on the air about Macho Man and Steamboat, or actually we were talking about that before. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't get to that without fucking Dynamite Kid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah, you're correct.
So Chad, who you got next?
Oh, we're on number 9?
Yes, sir.
All right, number 9 is going to be a guy it's way out of my wheelhouse, but after doing the research that I did, he was definitely a forefather and blaze the trail for future NWA wrestlers to become later on, and that's Jack Briscoe.
And that's another guy I scratched off one time. And yeah, Jack Briscoe. I mean, and I gotta say, to be honest, I haven't seen as much Jack Briscoe as someone probably 5 to 10 years younger or older than me has. But what I have seen has been, for what the style was at the time that he was wrestling, that guy was fantastic.
I never necessarily thought that he was a great, like his matches were that good. I looked at some of my other intangibles, my criteria. He was the guy that set the standard for the travel schedule. Yeah. Be the guy that held the belt for 5 years or so and have to go all over the world and wrestle the best guys in different territories. That was the guy that set the blueprint for the Ric Flairs, the Harley Races, in my opinion. And then the amount of money he drew, it's really screwed up in the sense that, you know, if you look at dollar for dollar then and now, you know, he drew a lot of money, you know, but it was you know, by the time you guys came along, you saw them when they were in the WWE as a tag team and job guys or, right, you know, or whatever. But yeah, but he was the guy that literally, he would have never been on my list if you would have asked me the top 10 favorite wrestlers of mine. I looked at the numbers and I was like, God damn, he was the guy that formulated the whole entire blueprint for the NWA title. And he was the only guy that I know of that said, I'm done being the NWA champion.
Yeah, I'm fed up with
somebody else. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, he said, if I hear another plane over my head, God damn, I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah. Shit.
But most definitely, yeah. And like I said, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his work. I would say I've seen enough of it, but I haven't seen a considerable amount of it. But what I have seen none of it's been bad. Again, always believable. And like you said, I mean, the schedule. I mean, what a schedule that guy worked. And I mean, you really don't hear. He didn't hardly ever get injured. You know, it's not like he was. Yeah, he was not like he was working that schedule and, well, I need to take 3-4 months off and because I got to rehab this shoulder or whatever. It was night after night, territory after territory, just working the best.
You also got to remember the only time that he probably generally flew somewhere back in the late 60s and in the mid 70s, early 70s was when he was going to like the West Coast or somewhere out there. Everywhere else he had to drive.
Right.
You know, that's thousands of miles a month that this guy had to be in a car. I mean, who would you pick if you had to drive in a car with somebody like that? You know, like, what if you got stuck with a turd? You know?
Like Hunter Q. Robinson.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
who?
Like Hunter Q. Robbins the third.
Yeah, I mean, what if you got stuck? He had to drive you around. Fuck.
Briscoe's like, I had to spend a month in the car with the great Antonio. It was
maybe that's why Jack Briscoe gave the belt up because he just got sick of driving around the country with this fucking idiot that was hired to drive him.
Unfortunately,
yeah. I mean, I don't know did he ever work Detroit? I don't know this off the top of my head.
I don't know.
Unfortunately,
it would seem to me he would have had to maybe at some point, but not probably during their glory years, you know?
Right.
Like Jack Briscoe versus the Sheik.
Unfortunately,
I watched that. I watched the Sheik versus anybody. Dude, the Sheik kills people.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying I don't think Jack Briscoe versus the Sheik would be good at all.
Unfortunately,
I bet you it happened. I bet you it happened in Florida. I'm telling you, I bet you it happened.
Unfortunately, Jack Briscoe has been lost to time because most people now just remember Jerry Briscoe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's,
well, I mean, no, I remember their body shop, the Briscoe Brothers Body Shop. You know, they specialize in rear end work.
Yeah,
they did.
Pat Patterson will help you out with that.
So, Kyle, number 9 for you.
He's a newer guy. But if you look back and we want to talk about a body of work and somebody who has lasted the test of time, I can't. Chris Jericho.
Okay, he's not on my list. He was on my original list of 60 or whatever.
He wasn't on my list at all.
Just because of length of career and match quality, he was but he didn't make. I don't think he even got close to my top 10.
Here's my reasoning for it. You guys can agree or disagree, but name me another wrestler who has had the length of time that he has had, who has constantly reinvented himself and stayed relevant and fresh.
What, in 30 years?
Yeah.
Undertaker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe Undertaker, but his absence has been longer than his. Sometimes his absence has been longer than his appearances.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he's been gone longer than he's been there. Jericho's never been gone longer than, I don't know how much. Maybe a year.
Maybe a year. Maybe.
Yeah.
A year.
He's never taken up enough time that you almost forget about him. Or maybe he's taken up enough time where you just forget about him and decides to come back. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Taker takes off for what, 2 or 3 years?
Right.
I mean, I think it's probably longer. I think I'm being generous, honestly. You know, it's WrestleMania, and then other than that, it's when. But yeah, right. I think Jericho's. You said he's number 9.
Yeah.
I think Jericho's a very good choice.
Think about it. You know, here we have AEW. And, you know, it's kind of like ECW with Terry Funk having Terry Funk, the old veteran that comes in to help establish this brand. Here is Jericho, who AEW basically built their back on. I mean, how many wrestlers?
And you know what else? It was great when Terry Funk and Shane Douglas did that musical number. That was amazing. Now I'm just being a smart ass. I'm sorry. No. I know what you're saying, buddy.
I know. Like I said, you and I have come to the realization, and we all have, that pro wrestling isn't pro wrestling anymore. It's sports entertainment, and you know, a case can be made that maybe it's passing us by. But I mean, the fact is that the man still's relevant.
Yes, and
I got a million problems with that dance skit with MJF, and I do, and that's nothing against Jim Cornette, because I usually 99% agree with Jim Cornette, but the reasons why I hate it is not because they did what they did. It's for other wrestling related reasons where I think Jim Cornette is a little more right. Mm-hmm. I watched it, and I'm like everybody else. Now they're using the word, are you entertained by it? Mm-hmm. Are you entertained by it? Why? Because they fucking did a dance bit? Whatever, a skit? Whatever? I wasn't entertained by it. Like, that's not what I tune in for.
Right.
You know, I don't want to tune in for that. And then when somebody was saying what about the Festival of Friendship? You know, blah, blah, blah.
There was physicality in that.
Yes, it was an angle. Mm-hmm. It was a fucking angle. Kevin Owens and Jericho didn't do a 2-step.
Foxtrot.
And here's the thing. Like, don't get me wrong. The musical number is horrible. There was some good in it. Like the fact of them sending their steaks back. Because anybody who's ever worked in the restaurant business knows how much that pisses you off.
Working up to where it flipped into a musical, I enjoyed it. To that point, yes. But what I will say about to put an exclamation point on your thing with Jericho, another reason I will say you have a case for him being in the top 10 is he has, again, the longevity of his career, the quality of the matches, and he is also a guy that you put him in the ring with somebody, you make them a star. Mm-hmm. You know, he is a guy that has made stars.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, he was in my original list of guys I made. I didn't put him in the 10, but I can totally see Jericho being in a top 10.
Yeah, honestly, me too. I mean, it all depends on your criteria. Mm-hmm. You know, you could easily take him out of the top 10 based upon he just worked Orange Cassidy. And you can easily just rip them out of the headlines. Like, forget about you. Why? Forget about the fact that he worked Ultimate Dragon at whatever at Korakuen. Right. But you put over fucking Orange Cassidy. I mean, all your street cred is gone.
I guess when I look at a pro wrestler, I not only look at like their time on top, but I look at like how they were able to help develop new talent.
Mm-hmm.
Able to work with, again, I mean this with all due respect to Bret Hart. I like Bret Hart. I love his matches. But nobody can sit here and honestly tell me with a straight face that Bret Hart wasn't selfish in the ring.
I don't know. You gotta be more elaborate on that one. I don't even know.
So basically, like with Bret Hart, it's like, when it was time to give back, even in WCW, like he just basically threw his fucking hands up and was like, fuck it.
Well, I mean, in that case, I would have too, because they're paying me $3 million a year, but they're also fucking my legacy over and booking me like shit. So at a certain point, I'd be like, fuck it. I don't,
Hold on.
And Orange Julius is a piece of shit.
Hold on a second, because you want to say like, oh, well, they were fucking his career and everything else. He's Bret fucking Hitman Hart. You're going to sit here and tell me that if he didn't sit there and look at Eric Bischoff and be like, fuck no, we're not doing that. Bret fucking going to be like, oh, okay.
I don't know. But I will, like I said, I will say I think that you make a good case for Jericho, and I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, you're number 9?
My number 9 is Ricky Morton.
Bastard. You bastard.
I had him in my original list. He didn't make the top 10, but Aaron knows I love Ricky Morton. I love the rock and rolls. Ricky is and I won't try to monopolize here, Aaron, I'm sorry, but just like I mentioned him in the Ricky Steamboat conversation, you talk about a babyface wrestler that, can sell and get heat on the heel and perfection. Ricky Morton.
Just do his goddamn job. Ricky Morton's fucking fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Morton falls a little bit short in my criteria. But I totally agree. I mean, if we're talking about best baby faces, best guys that could sell, I mean, there wouldn't even be a list. It would be Ricky Morton, Ricky Steamboat, either one or two, and then the rest of the guys.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, But as far as I don't know. I have a maybe that's because you're subjective about that, but it's your list. That's why nobody can bitch about it.
I love watching Ricky Morton sell a goddamn ass beating. Like, I really do. And watching him like try to get the hot tag to Robert and all that shit, it's fucking fantastic.
I'm pretty sure that me and Ricky Morton got thrown out of a bathroom at an independent show in Maryland because we were caught doing coke on the urinal.
I love that.
and it wasn't like, and it wasn't even like me and Ricky Morton went to the bathroom to do coke. Like, I went to the bathroom and Ricky Morton was in there, and he just invited me to do it. And then all of a sudden, because it was at a flea market where the building was, the show was at a flea market, and the bathrooms were way in the back, so you had to walk way past the vendors. As a matter of fact, sooner or later on my Facebook page, there'll be a picture of me and Ricky together at the flea market, and and we had to go back to this. The guy had to tell you where the bathroom is, and I walked in there and I heard Ricky, and then he was like, "Hey, brother, blah blah blah." And, yeah, what the fuck?
Time out. I've never done coke. I don't think any of the other co-hosts have ever done coke. But like,
on jazz,
I'm saying
Ricky Morton.
But like, what about a flea market toilet? Fucking says like, I'm gonna do cocaine here.
Oh, it was the urinal. It's right there in the back of the urinal where the little white spot is, where You know, you push the handle down, and you got that little white thing, and it tells you how many gallons per flush that you get. You put it right on there. I mean, that's what we did. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a regular at this. I mean, I just did what Ricky. You know, he was selling. He was selling the coke, brother. That's why he's on one of your guys' lists.
For selling. Yeah.
Salesman.
I don't know.
Anyway, Reed Morton, I thought, sold move for move, coat for coat.
No, Ricky Morton was unbelievable.
Anybody else, man?
Yeah, Ricky Morton was basically he set the standard for babyface selling. I mean, come on. I mean, there's not even a conversation. You can't even bring somebody to the table and argue with me about it. I say, shut up. You don't know what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Ricky Morton's the guy, and if it's not Ricky Morton, it's Ricky Steamboat. But again, why my argument for Steamboat was Ricky Morton had a longer career. He did it every night, day in, day in. Steamboat
He's still doing it.
Yeah, I know. He's doing Canadian Destroyers and shit.
Yeah. Ricky Morton's fucking fantastic. Like, I met him, and I met him at not even talking about like his work ability or whatever, but like I met the guy at a fucking signing or whatever, and when I met him, he was just such a cool dude when I met him, you know? Like he signed his autograph, but then he was just like, "Oh, I'm going to talk to you some more," and he's a very personable human being, but in the ring, like the Rock and Roll versus Midnight Express, there's no better tag team matches you can watch. Fucking Rock and Roll Express versus the Heavenly Bodies at fucking Survivor Series 93. That's fucking fantastic. Like, it's great.
And it's textbook. I mean, if you want to see, if you're somebody in the business and you want to learn how to be a tag team wrestler, and I'm pretty sure even tag teams like the Dudleys done it. Look at their matches, and so this is how you do it. You know, I mean, that's why the Dudleys are so great, because they had to have watched and see, this is what we got to do. We got to beat this babyface into the ground to like make it look like there is absolutely no chance that he can come back, you know?
Get this audience to the point where they want to fucking kill us. Yes.
And then when they screw up, you know, and Ricky makes the hot tag and Robert Gibson comes in and the crowd goes, "Yeah, but it's still Robert Gibson." It's awesome and all. We love it. Hot tag, but it's still Robert Gibson.
I know, Chad. You said it's textbook, but it's textbook, man. It's perfect.
It is. Yeah, but seriously, in the Great American Bash '86, if you went to a show and it was headlined by Robert Gibson versus Ric Flair, do you think Robert Gibson's winning the belt?
Nah.
Nah, but Ricky Morton might.
But it's going to be fun getting there.
Ricky Morton might win it.
Well, Ricky Morton almost did. Because remember the match where he did the flying body press off the top rope and rolled through, and then it became a referee's reversal for some reason. Well, that's what led to the whole Ricky Morton getting his face rubbed into the the grout of the bathroom.
Yeah,
remember that angle?
Yeah.
And that led to because they had so many shows to book for the Great American Bash, and they only had so many opponents for Flair. You couldn't do Flair and Dusty every night. That's why you got Flair versus Real Warrior Hawk one night.
I will say this, Ricky Morton being as old as he is, like when he went into that match against Nick Aldis, like you still like maybe you knew that it wasn't going to happen, but you like a part of you suspended your disbelief. Like, come on, Ricky Morton, you can fucking do it.
Well, you hope for him. You want him to do good. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the kind of person you could suspend disbelief on.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes you want to believe in wrestling. That's exactly what you said. Because you're like, yeah, you could do this. And what would happen if?
Right.
Now, and he's the kind of guy you can do that.
I might have to make a case here for my number 9. I don't know if I will or not, depending on what the reactions are from you guys. But I gave a nod in my top 10 to a guy that's still wrestling today, and that's Randy Orton. I fucking love Randy Orton. Randy Orton, I think, embraced, and much like Cena, and I didn't have my Cena in my top 10, but I think Randy Orton is one of those modern, I guess, quote unquote, modern guys that embraced pro wrestling as being pro wrestling. Because when I watch Randy Orton, I see him, his psychology is insane, and the way he moves and the way he positions himself and the way I would put Randy Orton in my top 10 that I like to watch wrestle. I mean, and you guys can dispute, you can agree, but I put Randy Orton in there, and he's been doing this for almost 20 years now, and I have not yet wanted to say, go away, Randy.
He is that guy that he's that last bit of the old school.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
I get it. He's not on my list. I mean, he'd be like at number 11 or 12, but I get it. I truly get it.
No, yeah, he's not on my list either. And quite frankly, he wasn't even in the running because of my criteria. But his name did cross my mind when I thought about 10 years from now.
Okay.
When I look back and go, God damn, did Randy Orton do a lot of shit? And because his 10 years has been, I don't even want to say it has been marred by anything, but it's been like start stop.
Yeah, and you're right, and he's definitely a great wrestler that is a victim of the way they book now, the whole 50-50 booking, and we're only going to give you so much, you're only going to be on top for so long, and we're going to move on to the next flavor. But I just, like I said, and again, like you've said a few times during the show, Chad, it's subjective, and I have always, and I love the dude, and I think he's great.
When I think of Randy Orton, I think back to, I don't know if you guys remember those Legends of Wrestling that they used to do on the 24/7 thing, but there's a thing Ted DiBiase said where he's like, it's going to take you longer to get over, but once you get over, you're going to be over for good.
For forever.
And I think
it's forever.
You look at like Batista. Batista was the man coming out of Evolution, and Orton was on the sidelines. And Batista came and went. And Randy Orton, it took longer for him to get over, but man, once he did.
I mean,
it almost seems like at sometimes, not every single time, but at sometimes, every time they cooled Randy off, it was the perfect time to cool him off.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now they're going to bring him back with a bigger, better angle instead of just keep putting him out there every single week, and doing his deal. And yeah, he's clearly somebody that we all take for granted because we're not used to seeing him every single week. But yeah, in 10 years, we're all going to be celebrating the legacy of Randy Orton. That goes without question. That's not even something we even got to think about. Of course we are. I've already got my tux.
You look back even when he was young pup, I guess is the expression I'll use. But that feud and the angles and the matches he had with Mick Foley, I mean, he just at that point in time he much like Edge benefited from working with Mick. But I think almost it seems like Randy. Every feud Randy's ever had with someone older than him, he absorbed something from that.
Randy's, I'm going to say something dumb. It's probably dumb. It's going to be dumb. But Randy is his generation, is in his generation's Jake Roberts.
Oh, man, you almost nailed it. Yeah, I got you. But I got you in that aspect. I got you.
like he's not the best in the ring, but psychology wise and in that effect, he's better than anybody else.
Right.
Like you might not watch you could watch a show from like 89 and Jake might be in it and you watch it and you're like, that wasn't the best match in the world, but that guy was better than anybody else in the fucking.
And I never looked away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you say about the psychology wise. And one thing I wanted to say about Randy Orton is, if you were a veteran, you could never go out there and intentionally try to blow up Randy Orton because he completely is not going to have it.
Right.
You know, the way he moves, all his moveset, all his spots. There's breaks where he can catch his breath. He ain't got to do shit. Like, you're not going to blow. And that's what made me reminded me of Jake when you said Jake, because you're not going to blow up Jake, because if he has to, he'll powder.
Yeah.
Right.
And Randy's a powderer. But yeah, Randy, in my opinion, he's definitely is going to be in the conversation in 10 more years.
So, Chad, it's your turn again.
Number 8?
Number 8.
All right, well, number 8, it's already been said, and I'm going to go with Chris Jericho.
Okay.
And it's only because of he checks every single one of the boxes. And Chris Jericho wasn't going to be on my list originally because I was taking it, like I said, seriously. But then when I started looking about his longevity, the amount of money he's drawn, and what he's done, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's only like 3 other people that have outdrawn Chris Jericho, you know? And one of them aren't even on my list, you know. So I'm going like, and he's still doing it, and a little bit of it could be biased because I could make a case to make him higher or lower. But I thought, being fair, you know, because he's still doing it at whatever level that Jim Cornette thinks he's doing it at, that he's still out there. But yeah, I think what he's done in I would say 25 years. Has been fantastic, and I basically put him on my list because of the last 4 years.
Okay.
You know, after the Festival of Friendship, and then what he did in New Japan, and then everything else. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to even talk about the Orange Cassidy stuff for a minute. I mean, that's all just whatever he wants to do.
Well, and that is what it is. You know, in the grand scheme of things, it is what it is.
And here's
at some point, Flair was getting depantsed every single Monday night. You know,
True.
You know how it works. Yeah, at the end of the day,
it's so worth Rolex on his neck and shit.
Go from the Festival of Friendship, where he's fucking goofy and wearing scarves and light-up jackets, to becoming the Painmaker in Japan, and people believed it.
Yeah, there's no doubt that he we already talked about it, so I'm not going to waste time redoing it. But he reinvents himself so much, and I can't think of anybody in the history of the business that has reinvented themselves so many times, especially in a time where information and like with the internet, you can find stuff out about people. You know, you can do it so vastly, quickly, where you can recreate yourself, and nobody's going to, like, you know.
There is definitely something to be said for versatility. I mean, let's be honest.
And it's work style. He does, you know. I mean, if you're going to talk about Bret Hart doing the same moves.
Well, and also to what we said about Jack Briscoe earlier. How many times in his career has Jericho had to take time off for an injury? Normally, his time off has been because he just wants to take time off. His contract expires. He doesn't want to sign a new one.
He's got the gout.
He has the gout? I didn't know he has the gout. I don't even think that's going to stop Chris Jericho.
Yeah,
nothing's going to stop him. Not even a raw steak.
Well, Kyle, what's your number 8?
All right. This guy, to me, pound for pound is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. He's a guy that transcended his nationality. You know, in pro wrestling, we know that, it's like, oh, this guy's a Mexican wrestler. This guy is a Japanese wrestler. But Eddie Guerrero transcended being a Latino superstar to the point where people forgot that he was a Latino superstar.
He was obviously, as you know, from knowing me, he was in my 60. He wasn't in my 10. But I will say and I'll let you guys elaborate afterward. I will say the same thing I always say about Eddie Guerrero. If I want to sit down and watch a pro wrestler's body of work and smile, I'm going to watch Eddie Guerrero. He makes me smile.
It doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I turn on an old WCW, if I turn on an old WWE, if Eddie Guerrero comes on my phone, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and watch. Because I know it's going to be amazing. I know that it's going to be entertaining. I know that he is going to have an amazing match. And like I said, think about it. He is the kind of kid that transcends his nationality.
Mm-hmm.
I speak that enough. Like, there's very few guys in this business or even in history that have transcended their nationality where, even the most jaded racist guy was like, you know what? I like Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah. Yeah. Ron Simmons, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Or obviously The Rock. But, yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying. And again, like I said, I mean, I watch him. When I watch his matches, he has again, some of my favorite matches ever. He just makes me smile when I watch him. I know it sounds cheesy, and I say it all the time, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of Eddie is, damn, Eddie Guerrero makes me smile, man. He entertains me.
And if he had not passed away as young as he did, I think we would be looking back on Eddie Guerrero's all time.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt. I mean, he beat Brock Lesnar for the title, and people believed it.
Yeah.
Being the size that he was. Pound for pound, I think Eddie Guerrero is one of the greatest that's ever stepped in the ring. Because not only did he have the in-ring capabilities, but he could back it up. He was so damn entertaining. He was the complete package.
Mm-hmm. And it is too bad.
I like Eddie Guerrero. For me, he missed the mark, just not by much, because he really didn't have a chance to be on top long enough,
right,
to make a mark. But his body of work, clearly, I mean, like you said, I actually smiled when you said that watching him work makes you smile, because I watch it and I can see the fun that he's having.
Mm-hmm.
How he's enjoying himself because of the guys that he's working with, and how it's going fluent. You know what I mean? How it's working and how he's enjoying himself. And I smile too. I've been around Eddie multiple times, and not that me and Eddie were friends or anything, but yeah, I'm a guy who peeked through the curtain, during an Eddie match to watch Eddie work somebody. I've done it. Eddie's a good choice, but just for me, because maybe I'm a little older, that he pretty much fell through the cracks, and it's not Eddie's fault.
No,
it's just because I'm a little older.
Right. Like I said, when growing up, like I said, I started watching wrestling with my grandmother. Chad, I think will appreciate this. My grandmother was a huge Ultimate Warrior fan. She believed it was 100% real. Like, if you watch, you see those people who scream at the TV during NFL games, that was my grandmother. Like, anytime anybody was cheating or pulling the hair of the Ultimate Warrior, she screamed and hollered. That's where I fucking fell in love with pro wrestling. And so, the fondest memories I have was watching early WCW and stuff, and see amazing matches, Eddie Guerrero and Benoit and Mysterio and Jerry. It's like
I've told this story a couple times on different shows, and I totally don't want to take credit for it. I don't even know if I told it on your show, where like how I was kind of indirectly responsible for Jericho getting a job with ECW. Yeah. Because I'm 100% positive that I gave Raven the tape of the Super J Cup, 95. And then he let Paulie see it. And I think Feinstein got the credit for it, or somebody got the credit for it. I don't know. But I think it ultimately passed through my hands before it got to somebody that saw it. But Eddie Guerrero was on that show, right? He was Black Tiger.
Yeah. He may have even did he wrestle Jericho on that show? I don't know why my tone just went up like that.
No, but I don't think so. I think Jericho wrestled I think he wrestled maybe El Samurai. Then the finish was Ultimo Dragon, but I don't know who he wrestled in the semifinal. Oh, maybe Benoit.
Okay.
Or one of the Japanese guys. But yeah, Eddie Guerrero is somebody. Fuck, man. If Eddie Guerrero had 7 different outfits in his suitcase, I would have him be the only guy on the show. That's how good Eddie Guerrero was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was like, can you be a Russian assassin? Can you go out there, fuck America, whatever?
So
he's
Aaron,
that good.
Oh, sorry, Chad. Aaron, who is your numero ocho?
Is my next one?
Yeah, Aaron.
My next one is Dean Malenko.
I like Dean. He wasn't in my 60 though. Maybe just I don't want to say I forgot about Dean Malenko, but in my thought process, but go ahead and I'll let you. It's your pick, so I'll let you say.
Yeah, please.
Man, I love Dean Malenko, man. Like
me too.
He's fucking fantastic. Like,
I don't know. What do you guys know about Dean Malenko before 1995?
Well, I don't know a lot about Dean Malenko before 95, but as a kid, like watching the Nitro era and all that shit, like seeing Dean Malenko work, I just thought he was fantastic.
No, Dean Malenko is unbelievable. Fuck. I mean, if I had enough money to spend and I decided I was going to be a wrestler and I had an option to go to whatever wrestling school, my wrestling school or Dean Malenko's wrestling school, fuck, I'm going to go to Dean Malenko's school. I know like 16 moves. He knows like 1,000. Like, I'm going to teach you how to like fall out of the ring and stuff.
Well, Jericho knows 1,004.
Yeah, well, I'm number 4. I gave him number 4. The moss covered 3-handle family Granunza. He got that from me. I don't give a shit what he says because I gave it to Raven. There you go, Raven again. Raven again is my thorn in my side. We're gonna have to get Raven on this podcast, or maybe the 2300 once he comes in and have him come clean how he's stealing my ideas and making Jericho a big star that he is.
Oh man. If we could get Scott Levy on the 2300, that'd be fantastic.
No, you wouldn't want it. He would totally shit on all of us, and he would do it on purpose, and it wouldn't even be good to have him on. Because he'd be like, Chad, he's the jobber. He didn't do anything. What is this stupid show? What do you guys? Yeah. You wouldn't want
Johnny Polo.
as much as I love Scotty. No, you wouldn't want him on your show because he would totally just fucking shit on it, and he wouldn't take any of it seriously.
Going to Dean was one of those guys that, again, when you look at his body of work, he was the perfect accent to anybody else because he didn't need to be fucking high flying.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. He just had to be there. He had to be there. He had to be there to catch and take.
Mm-hmm.
But is that a main eventer? Is that a guy that's drawing your money, or is that just a good talent?
You know,
the way I look at it.
I would argue that maybe he wasn't the main eventer, but he drew money because you knew if you're going to see Dean Malenko versus Benoit, or Dean Malenko versus Mysterio, you're going to get a great match. And Malenko is kind of like, for that cruiserweight division, he was kind of like that guy. He was the guy that
I always consider him to be the gatekeeper, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's probably not where I want to be if we're making a list of the top 10 greatest of all time. I don't want to be the gatekeeper of the cruiserweight division.
But not everybody can.
I wasn't even trying to like say the cruiserweight division. Like when I made my list, I was making my list off of guys that I watched in my time as being believable in the ring ass kickers, and I thought Dean was.
That's why our lists are all subjective and nobody's got wrong ideas or wrong people. Yeah, that's fine.
I never saw a Dean Malenko match where I thought, I think this guy's a joke. You know what I mean?
There had to be one on like something like Heat or something, where he was probably paired up with like Ivory.
Go back.
No, I'm talking about WCW Dean Malenko, not WWE fucking Dean Malenko. Yeah, he was fucking. They had him coming out to like James Bond music and shit. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about ass kicking, like
1999.
Flicking the
player. Go back and watch that one.
Fucking doing his shit, Dean Malenko. Like Dean Malenko versus Ultimo Dragon. Like, yeah, that's goddamn good shit.
I don't know.
Well, then Dean Malenko is apparently we all have different lists based upon different opinions. So, Dean Malenko is not a bad worker at all. But beyond any stretch of the imagination. But, we're talking about top 10. So, yeah, that's fine. If that's your list, that's your list. I can't fault that.
Can I ask a question to everybody? Does anybody have Ultimo Dragon on their list?
No.
I don't, and I purposely didn't put any Japanese people on my list.
Fair enough.
Because I didn't know if the people that might continue to see who I'm dealing with were that as familiar with Japanese wrestling as I was. I didn't know if you guys were. And I didn't want to bring up a name and have to tell you guys, no, it's this guy, and this is what so I purposely kept everybody just, like I said, it was in my 50 years of being alive that I've seen wrestle.
But for me, when I was watching in the 90s and see Ultimo Dragon walk out with all those belts, it was like, holy shit, this guy is...
Who the fuck is this guy? Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
Is Kyle trying to sneak a fucking dude into his list? Fuck off, Kyle.
Well, my number 8 is Jerry Lawler.
Good pull.
Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler, to me, is like... You look at Lawler, and it's like, he's not built great. And, he doesn't have, 470 moves. But, damn, this guy can fight. And, wow, he really has been a really long time. And, you don't want to look at it kayfabe or, the story. But Jerry Lawler, again, and another guy that, I don't know. Lawler's one of my faves. He's been consistent his whole career. Did he have some goofy shit to deal with at times? Yeah, but that was brought on himself, Dr. Frank and all that. But he never had a match that was awful. Or maybe some of them were, because a lot of the footage that I've seen of his main event matches are clip footage from those Coliseum shows. But overall, I put Lawler in my top 10.
he did WrestleMania before Vince McMahon did with Andy Kaufman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what the correlation is of WrestleMania and Andy Kaufman, but
the star like having people from Hollywood come in and be a part of pro wrestling.
Yeah, but the big difference, in my opinion, is that Jerry Lawler didn't try to capitalize on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he didn't try to make it a national thing. He kept it right there in Memphis. Yeah. Vince, as soon as he got Ray Charles and Liberace, he's like, "Oh fuck, I'm going fucking public. I'm going on the Today Show. I got Liberace. I got Billy Martin, who got fired from the Yankees or whatever the fuck." But you know what I mean?
Like Vincent pile drive Aretha Franklin on the fucking.
However, Roddy Piper did kick Cyndi Lauper in the fucking head.
No, he thought about it, but he didn't do it.
So, anybody disagree or agree with me on Lawler?
Well, I'll get to Lawler later on.
Okay.
But yeah, I have no. I mean, he's another one of them guys that checks all the boxes in my criteria.
Aaron?
I agree with Lawler. He was almost on my list.
So, Mr. Austin, that means you are next.
And where were we at? Number 7?
Number 7.
Number 7, I choose. I'm looking at my list like I'm doing a fantasy draft of some sort. Like, I keep referring to my papers like I don't even know who the fuck I picked. Number 7, I wrote down Hulk Hogan. And he's one of the guys that I subjectively I put him on the list, but I never liked him. Like, when I was a kid, I never liked him. When I got older, I never liked him. I always thought he was
drew money.
What's that?
He drew money.
Yeah, he drew money. He was on top for a long time. His influence in the business goes without even, I don't even got to say it. And then he reinvented himself in 2 big ways. Hulkamania and then the NWO Hogan. So as bad as he was as far as once the bell rings, he's Hulk Hogan. He made a bunch of people a lot of money in the 80s and then in the mid 90s. And to me, that can't go without recognition. Because even today, if I was on a show working an independent show and just say Hogan was doing it autograph signing, and I was on that show, and the show drew like 2,000 people,
you're gonna make bank.
What's that?
You're gonna make bank.
Yeah, and I would walk by Hogan and I would say thanks for the house.
Right.
That he said he changed the whole entire course of the business.
Mike Tyson is the boxing, as John Elway is the NFL, as Hulk Hogan pro wrestling.
Pretty much, yeah.
People who don't even know what pro wrestling is know fucking Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they probably have some Hulk Hogan merchandise at their house they don't even know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got it at a car wash because they got 10 car washes.
And I know a lot of times his work rate gets shit on, but he if you watch Japan, like some of his stuff from New Japan, he actually could work. Maybe not the greatest, but he could work. And we talked about selling. And as far as selling goes, yeah, okay. Hogan sold in the cartoony WWF way, but that's the way that it was formulated for him to sell. But when I was a little kid, I was rooting for him to beat that bad guy. So he did his job effectively on the sell job too. So yeah, I definitely see Hogan being there. I didn't put him on my list, kind of because I thought somebody else would. Like, he was in my 60, but I figured, well, we're going to talk about him. Somebody's going to bring him up. So
my list, because And let's not get over the fact that that's fucking funny. Fucking get 10 watches free, get a Hulk Hogan fucking. But
yeah. I mean, personally, I could if I never won another day without seeing a Hulk Hogan match, I'd be fine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't deny. Like I said, I put some work into this, and I did some research, and goddamn, almost 6 years on top, almost 300 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my calculator battery ran out.
That's just the WWF run.
Yes.
You know.
And not even just that, but think about it. Like, he laid the foundation for guys like Rock, guys like Austin, after it was said and done, to become movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
And it,
well, I don't know about all that, but yeah. Let's not get carried away with the movie stars.
Mr. Nanny, everyone, Mr. Nanny. I present for your consideration, Academy.
Yep. Matter of fact, I have the tape right here. As a matter of fact,
hold on. You know what? When I was a kid, fucking Suburban Commando was my shit, man.
Well, you were a stupid kid.
All right, Kyle. Who's the next guy on your list?
He is the only.
If you say Suburban Commando, I'm gonna fucking smack you.
Only Olympic gold medalist ever in pro wrestling, Kurt Angle.
Spoiler alert!
Scratch him off my list.
Spoiler alert! Kurt Angle was my number one.
I'm sorry. We'll wait till you get to your number one, then, Nate.
Well, you already ruined that one.
We can talk about him now. That's fine. He whatever. To me, watching him, and again, this is not that Kurt Angle is my favorite, my personal favorite, but watching him assimilate from being an amateur to a professional, first of all, in our lifetime, he is a Jack Briscoe or someone to that effect. He is that amateur that really, really just took to pro wrestling like a duck to water. I've never seen a bad Kurt Angle match. And I had him at number one for me. He's like bell to bell, the best I've ever seen.
You have a guy who comes in 2000 amongst Stone Cold, amongst The Rock, amongst Triple H, amongst Mankind, amongst all these stars, and is able to put his fucking footprint and carve a niche out for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to get over where the fans are like, fuck, this guy's good.
Found it.
What is it?
Suburban Commando.
Suburban Commando.
Sit here and tell me you didn't fucking get a kick out of Undertaker having that fucking little kid's voice. Good, man.
I love the Suburban Commando. Pull it back. That's fine. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, like I said, Angle was number one on mine. Kyle, go ahead.
But again, it's fuck Kurt. Like, how can you argue with a guy who won a fucking Olympic gold medal
with
a broken fucking neck?
Okay.
Like, how can you argue with that? How can you sit there and see a guy in the ring and go like, fuck, this guy's real?
And like I said, I mean, he to me, just a duck to water with from amateur to pro. And again, for me, what I've viewed in my lifetime, I put him at number one. Chad, as the worker of the group, did you even have him on your 10?
No, I didn't. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even think about him. Like, now that you said it, now that it makes me rethink my list because of the actual work that he did. But I don't think he checked all the boxes on my criteria, honestly.
Okay.
But yeah, Kurt Angle, goddamn, how good was that? Seriously, that guy was so good, it was unbelievable. Like how like you said, duck to water. Mm-hmm. And people want to say like, when it was Ronda Rousey's debut or whatever kind of stuff.
Yeah,
was the best. But Kurt Angle, good God, You know, even that stuff in ECW. Unfortunately, I wasn't there that night in ECW. I wish I was.
Oh, shit. I wish you were too.
Yeah.
God, I wish you were too.
Because I was working for somebody else that night, and I heard about it while it was going on, and I was like, damn, I should have been there. And yeah, and then I didn't know who Kurt Angle was. I didn't know anything about him. But this guy literally came in and took the business over and picked it up like it was nothing. You know?
Think about
he was unbelievable. And I would say he's another guy. See, another reason why I don't have him on my list is because he wasn't on top for as long.
Right.
He had like 5 years off of 2 years, on 3 years, off a year, and then he went to TNA or whatever, you know. And I'm not considering that, like, you know.
But I will say this, since you brought it up, the fact is that he carried fucking TNA for a lot of years.
Yeah, he was to TNA what Jericho is to AEW now.
He made
at one point
watchable. When a lot of it wasn't watchable, he was, you know, at least you can look at Angle and say, well, at least he's fucking real.
I honestly can't even comment on that because at that point I wasn't even getting TNA anymore because they had fallen so far off the radar that none of my cable companies carried it, and I still don't get access. And I looked it up, and none of the cable companies in my county or even in the state even carry that channel. So I can't even watch Access. All I see is what's on YouTube, like highlights or whatever.
Can you imagine?
So I have no idea what's going on.
Can you imagine having a company where fucking Spike TV, fucking TV providers like, we will put you on the air, we just don't want you to have Vince Russo. And then you fucking have him like in the background still.
Like, what a mistake.
I have a ton of I have a ton of TNA like DVDs and stuff that I haven't watched. But when I look at them, when I go through them, I see names like Punk on them and stuff like that. I'm like, CM Punk work there?
That's a very early
That's
shit.
how long it's been since I've seen any of this stuff. Samoa Joe?
Punk was like a lackey for Raven. It was weird. Like, he was like a Raven wannabe. Like, it was really weird. Like,
yeah. Aaron, next on your list.
Okay, next person on my list is Dave Finlay.
Who?
Fit
Dave
Finlay.
Fit Finlay.
David Fit Finlay?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The audio was bad when I heard Dave, but I didn't hear the last name. I'm just like, Dave.
Super Dave
Osborne.
Osborne. No, it's
Super
Osborne.
Dave.
With
Not
his manager,
Super
Mr.
Dave.
fucking Fuji.
Goddamn Fit Finlay, man. He's fucking fantastic.
No, he's better than fantastic. Fantastic wishes he was as good as Fit Finlay.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't put him on. Again, he's not on my list, but it's not my list.
He's a goddamn genius.
You want to talk about a guy who was fucking start and stop. Fucking, that is the tale of Fit Finlay. Because I
think more or less, I think that Mr. Finley's problem was he was a victim of, by the time he got to the States, he was a little on the older side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And his career was already on the back nine, so they used him for what they could, but then when they were done with him, they really didn't know what to do with him.
But goddamn, man, that guy is a fucking champ.
He was. We talk about guys that when you watch them in the ring, they look real. There's very few, I guess, stateside. Let's just say stateside. All right. Not counting Strong Style in Japan or what have you. Stateside, there are very few matches that will achieve the realism of a match between Dave Finlay and William Regal. So, bell to bell, Absolutely.
Dave Finlay. I'm just saying, like I've watched a lot of matches with this shit with like when he was doing European stuff, which are fantastic. But like he did a deal where he was working with like the Boogeyman.
Jesus.
I mean, was it Norman Smiley?
No,
Was Norman Smiley involved in this?
Well, Norman Smiley should have been. Norman Smiley's a good wrestler too.
Yeah, he's a guy that Finlay worked a lot in like Europe and Japan and stuff.
Like if I could watch a Norman Smiley and fucking Dave Finlay match, I'd watch that all day.
There's a reason why WCW Nitro put fucking Steve Regal versus fucking Fit Finlay on to go up against fucking Doink the Clown and shit in WWF, because he knew that people were going to be like, fuck, this is fucking real. This is...
Yeah, this is wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, that's what I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 7 is Ric Flair.
Fucker.
You should be ashamed of yourself. It's your show.
Flair was so good. I mean, there's
he was so good that he's not your number one.
That he's not my number one. No,
He's
Kurt
number
Angle was
7.
number one.
So there's 6 people that are better than Ric Flair, but Ric Flair was so good.
He was so good. This is 10 people out of thousands and
you go
thousands.
outside. You go outside every day in public, and people see you. Do they know this? Hey, come on. Let's be honest. You got to be ashamed of yourself.
Flair's my number one. So you knocked that off my list.
No, on my list, it was Ric Flair and 9 other people.
And 9 other people. And
yeah.
He is easily the greatest showman. Hey, look, he's on Chad's TV right now. Woo! Cutting that promo, baby.
I don't know what it's like to be in a ring. I don't know what it's like to be a pro wrestler. Chad does. But for the man to go 60 minutes, night in, night out, I can't imagine.
Mm-hmm. And living the lifestyle he lived.
God damn. You know,
well, if we're going to get to Ric Flair, I'm not gonna get into Ric Flair until I get to my number one, which clearly has already been divulged, and I'll give you my reasons why when we get there. But yeah, I mean, even the fact that he's in your top 10, if he wasn't, I would probably quit the show.
Yeah, Chad be like, I'm not doing business with this guy anymore.
I don't know. You fucking guys are flea market podcasters. I ain't got time for this. What are you gonna have fucking? I don't know. What are you gonna have Bill Dundee on next week?
But you know,
good Lord.
A couple of years ago, Ric Flair was in Fort Wayne for, I think it was like, what was it, like Legends Wrestling or whatever?
Something like that, yeah.
And Fort Wayne's pretty close to us, and they fucking kicked him out of the bar. Called the fucking bartender a fat boy. And I was like, man, I would be fucking honored to have Ric Flair call me a fat boy.
We will wait to talk about his legacy and his career until Chad gets to his number one, which is obviously the Nature Boy. So, Chad, I will let you do your number 7.
Number one. Wait, my number 7?
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 7.
You're number 6. I'm sorry.
Number 6. All right, it's gonna be somebody that's probably gonna shock a lot of you guys, and I'm going with Bruno.
Okay.
Good pull. It's good pull.
And Bruno had 12 years of being on top and headlining the Garden, and that's a lot of money. And
actually the most Garden sellouts, I believe.
Was?
I think he had the most Garden sellouts too.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
He had the most Garden sellouts, but because of the economics of the situation, he didn't make as much money. But his impact on the business, seriously, who the fuck could be the champion for 12 years?
Right.
Jesus Christ! I mean, I'm the neighborhood grass cutting champion in my neighborhood, and I'm going on 11 years. And nobody's cut grass more than me in this neighborhood. But Bruno is going out there and he's beating all these people and he's putting asses in the seats. And he wasn't the greatest worker. That's his one strike in my criteria. But his best attribute, in my opinion, was when he was in feuds. When he was in feuds and all he had to do was punch and kick, that was the best Bruno. You know? It wasn't him against Pedro at Shea Stadium or whatever. You know what I mean? It was him and Zbyszko where, like, I've heard an argument about the steel cage matches about, well, why does the babyface have to leave the cage? You know, he looks like a coward. Well, in my opinion, if I beat you up to the point where you're laying there and I walk away instead of beating you up more, why am I not a babyface?
Right,
you know?
and I totally agree with that. I have always disagreed with people that shit on that cage match finish because you're right. It's essentially last man standing. I've beat you so bad.
Yeah, I'm walking home. I'm out of here.
I can climb a fence. I can climb a fence and leave you laying on the ground, and you're done, son.
my taxi cab's running. The meter's running. You know. Here I am. I'm going to beat you up. I'm just going to walk out. And the way Bruno walked out was so great. You know, he walked out nonchalant. He raised his hand up, you know, and he took his steps down, you know, down the step things, and he walked out like he beat the shit out of Zbyszko and left him laying. But I mean, it's his other body of work. He goes in the same category as the Jack Briscoes, in my opinion. That he set the standard for the travel.
Right.
Even though in the Northeast, where Bruno was champion, his travel was nowhere near as vigorous or as strenuous as Jack Briscoe's, because he had to go to Pittsburgh, you know, Buffalo, New York, you know, all that circuit, and he had to wrestle like, you know, the same amount of matches, but he had less travel. Right. But yeah, he drew more money. You know, imagine in the Northeast you being an Italian. And there's an Italian Superman as your, you know, your superhero.
Yeah.
That to me, like I didn't want to put somebody like Bruno on my list, but I almost couldn't discredit Bruno.
Well, you know and even though maybe Briscoe traveled more miles, are there more? What do I want to say? Ardent and maybe fickle fans than an East Coast, you know, and more hostile than maybe Chicago. But so Bruno being able to be a mainstay in the East Coast territory for that long and people not turning on him is a testament to his ability and his charisma.
Also, I think the big thing too is, again, none of us have ever been in the ring. Chad, you have. I gotta imagine it's fucking tough to walk into the same arena week in, week out to the same fans and have to try to, you know, please them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you gotta further your story.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta go like, all right, last month we were here, and he might even remember what he did last month. You know?
Right.
Somebody might even have to go, hey, last month we were here. We did a double count out. So now we got to do a double DQ so we can build to a lumberjack or a cake or whatever. And, right. You know, and Bruno might go, what do we do? You know? and then, I mean, do you think that he sat around like fucking the kids nowadays and went over the match like, all right, I'm going to do this, this, and this?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, he went out there and Ken Patera just said, I'm in the ring with Bruno Sammartino. I'm going to bump.
Yeah, I was going to say, I assure you that Bruno and Kowalski didn't spend the day going over how their match was going to go down.
Well, if they did, they have no idea what the fuck they were talking about. I don't know. Like, I mean, they were like, all right, I'm going to punch you. What do you want me to do? Well, you punch me back. And then what? Then what? You know, there's no way Bruno did that.
Then I'm going to kick you in the fucking head.
And I'm going to ram your head in the turnbuckle. And then you're going to sell like Baron Miguel Cicluna. And then Killer Kowalski goes, I don't know how Baron Miguel Cicluna sells. He goes, well, this is how he sells. And he does the whole hands over there. Of course. Yeah. I mean, there's no chance that Bruno sat around with them guys. And, like, I've done it. I've had to wrestle on shows where I've been in separate locker rooms and never talked to the guy until I got into the ring. I've done it a bunch of times. It's not fucking easy. And it's not really that fun, in my opinion. It wasn't like, I'm not Ricky Morton. I'll be honest. I'm not Ricky Morton where I can, well, when you feel the crowd of 12,000 as opposed to 120, it's a different vibe. When I'm selling and there's only 120 fans cheering for you to rally up, it's kind of difficult.
So do you think it's again, I'm getting in the weeds because sometimes you bring things up and I just want to pick your brain. Do you think it's better to go in the ring with just a small inkling of what you're going to do, or do you think it's better to overplan? I
mean, it really depends on who you are. Do you really think you're going to go out there and call a match with Ricochet in the ring? I don't think so. Like as an example, what I considered my my last professional match, it was a couple years ago, and I did it for my cousin who promoted the show, and he had me booked against a guy who I'd worked many times before, Christian York. Okay, and when we got to the show, and there was 125 people there, and he says to me, he's like, "So what do you want to do?" And I looked at him, and I was like, I was drinking. I was sitting out back tailgating. And he's like, I go, I want to call it in the ring. He goes, okay. And then he goes, oh, but I have this one spot that I do where I do this, and this. I go, okay, just tell me when you want to put it in the match. And then he goes, okay, but I have this other spot that I do. And I go, okay, just tell me when. And he goes, but then after that, I do this. And I just think, you know what? Why don't we just sit down and talk about this?
I feel like that's how the planning of every AEW match goes. So how can we get every single spot every one of us does into the match?
And it shouldn't be that way. Well, for one, now it's even worse because there's no crowd. That's even worse because you have like even the kids that have been around. Say they had been around for 5 or 6 years when they had performed in front of crowds. Where, I mean, not even big crowds, just people in general, where they got some feedback on their stuff. Now they're doing stuff in front of no crowds. So they don't know what's working. Right. They don't know what works. They don't know what the crowd's going ooh and on. Like, I can sit there and tell you how great Private Party is all day long. But there's nobody there to tell me that they're great.
Right.
They're just the regular fucking, they're the black guys that are on NXT. Or SmackDown or whatever. Isn't one of them married to Bianca Belair or vice versa? Or I don't fucking know. I mean, I can't believe they have two different and this is not even a racial thing. They have two different black tag teams that are basically the same team, right?
Yeah,
aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Private Party and Street Profits. I mean, you look at the two.
Oh, that's the name. The Street Profits.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're essentially the same gimmick, same team.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Steve Regal.
Well, them guys are good, man. I'll tell you that. I don't give a shit what their names are, how close they are, but them guys can fucking do some shit.
Steve Regal.
But it's Kyle's next, Aaron. Don't be rude.
Fuck him. He's just sitting there being fat. I'm saying
Steve Regal. Somebody's just yelling out, Steve Regal.
Yeah, Steve Regal.
Bob Roop.
First off,
you guys are talking about fucking random shit. I'm saying Steve Regal.
Sitting here being fucking Buddha.
Fat and happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Kyle, we got a spoiler for Aaron's next, but he's not next. So he's got Regal, but who do you got, Kyle, next?
I've got the King of Kings. The game.
Triple H?
Regal?
Triple H. Here's my point for this.
Okay.
People want to say that, he only is where he is because of Stephanie and blah, 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 blah. But think about the fact that he picked up the ball when Steve Austin left and ran with it as the biggest heel in pro wrestling. You can say what you want to say about the reign of terror of him, holding the title and beating everybody. But tell me that it didn't mean something when Batista beat him or Cena beat him.
Mm-hmm.
Or, he is the closest our generation's ever seen to a Ric Flair or Harley Race.
As far as booking goes, yeah, I'll say that. And he does not. I don't think he gets enough credit for the level of worker that he is.
Yeah.
Honestly, and he does have a passion for it, and he does take it seriously, obviously, and he's not on my list, but I'm not going to shit on the fact that you put him on your list, because I think for a certain period of time, if you're talking about who you are ranking as the top 10 workers ever, I mean, let's be honest, has Triple H ever had a shitty match? No, so. I mean, I'll let other people step in here, but...
And again, I'm saying, he took over from fucking Steve Austin. When Steve Austin left, he was the guy that took over for him. And granted, Shawn came back and everything else, but the fact is, he was the guy to take over and help run that company until, a Cena came along.
Mm-hmm.
I mean... People can say what they want to say, but fucking Triple H is damn good in that ring.
Well, I'll say this: if you wanted me to do a top 11, or top 12, sure, certainly. And you don't think that I didn't scratch out Triple H, somewhere on this list? Yeah, I did. But again, I looked at all the boxes. That he didn't draw the money. He came around at a time when the WWE drew the money. Right. He was just the guy that was the main event guy. It wasn't like people were begging to go see Triple H wrestle, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so yeah, as far as as what you guys are talking about right now, by mentioning guys like Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, I see where Triple H definitely falls in your top 10. I totally see that. Yeah, of course he does in your top 10. I can totally see where he falls. Even highly ranked as he is in your top 10, I can see where he falls. But mine, no, he just fell short just for variable reasons. It wasn't like he wasn't acknowledged or anything like that. It was just he fell short in a couple of categories, in my opinion.
Right. And like I said, to me, I think that the fact that he's not a main event draw, but he's that guy, kind of like a Roddy Piper or a Vince McMahon, where he is the guy that you want to see get his ass kicked.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely a good heel, a fantastic heel, especially for his time.
But he did do some fucking hokey bullshit stuff.
Absolutely, like Katie Vick.
That kind of turned me off. When he started doing that whole stuff with the whole he was hokey. He was good when he was good, and once he became Triple H, the King of Kings, that's when he was good. Mm-hmm. When he was with DX and all that nonsense, that was just fucking hokey nonsense.
But yeah, like I said, I love the fucking WrestleMania 22 Triple H, where he fucking comes out and he's like, "I'm the fucking king. I am the fucking best."
Well, let's talk about. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, let's talk about Curt Hennig.
And he was number 2 on mine. Curt Hennig.
Wow, never even thought about him, honestly.
He's in my 5 favorite ever. But like bell to bell, I've always said I contend that I've never watched a more natural wrestler in the ring. For me, and again, not being a wrestler, but I've never watched someone to me that looked more natural in a professional wrestling match than Curt Hennig.
All right, well, that's your opinion. I don't have the same opinion. I don't think Curt Hennig was that great at all.
Really?
No, I don't think that. I'm not saying that he wasn't good, but I don't think he was great. There's a whole lot of holes that Curt Hennig had in his game when it came to bumping and psychology and stuff like that. But I don't blame it on Curt. I blame it on where he was brought up at. He was brought up in Winnipeg and in Montreal, Minnesota, and that territory where, the baby faces had to take beatings and blah, 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 blah. And he never really learned how to bump very good. And I think that was pretty much the catalyst of what could have been the downfall to him when it came to the substance abuse. Because he would take these crazy bumps. It would subsidize the fact that, I don't know. There was a lot of fundamentals that he didn't do properly, if that makes any sense to you guys.
No, I get it.
And that's why it's great that you're in this conversation with us, because you're a worker, and that's why it's great to have you in this conversation, because he took a lot of unnecessary bumps, and then some of the bumps that he should have took, he didn't take them properly. In today's age, and not to matter the fact that that when he was taking them bumps back in the early '80s, that ring was stiff. That wasn't like a ring they have nowadays, like the ECW ring that Max Thrasher rents to Paulie Dangerously and the ECW 2300 Revival podcast. It wasn't the same ring that it's a bouncy ring. It's a stiff ring. So yeah, that shit takes a toll on you, man. Yeah, he never was. One of the things that I never liked was his clothesline, like the way he took a clothesline. Watch the way he falls sometimes when the guy hits him and he tries to do an inside-out clothesline and turn inside out, and he ends up falling on his forearms and his head. Why would it? What the fuck? Don't even try that.
And guys, I'm not trying to kiss ass or suck dick here, but I'm telling you right now, this is the kind of shit that you can expect on the 2300 podcast. If you haven't gone and listened to it, we have a guy who's fucking been in the fucking ring, who knows what it means to be a pro wrestler. So fucking go and subscribe to that if you're not already.
So Aaron, you brought up Curt.
Yeah.
So I'll let you make your case for Curt.
I just thought Curt was a great wrestler.
Curt is a great wrestler. If that's all you're gonna say, man, yeah.
Yeah, like when I watch him work and when he bumps and shit, like watch him work with like Hogan, who I know you guys didn't like, but I just thought he did a good job.
So the next guy, I guess we'll go to my number 6 here.
I think we're on 5.
Holy shit, you guys are on 5. I'm on fucking 3.
I think we've knocked people off of each other's lists.
Yeah.
But I got Harley Race here. And
good one.
He was my number.
What was that, Kyle?
He was my number 2.
Okay. Harley is, I guess the word I would use to describe Harley when it comes to being a worker is convincing. That's like the biggest word that I think of when I think of Harley. Like,
you ain't kidding.
When I watch him, and again, he's one of those guys that I'm going to be honest. For me, growing up in Toledo, Ohio, in the early mid 80s to the early 90s. I did not, until I became, a grown ass man, watch a lot of Harley Race. I wasn't exposed to him. I just didn't see him, But going back through time and being able to watch so much of him as I've been able to watch, I would say that 20 years ago, as naive as I would have been to him, I wouldn't have put him on this list. But now, going back and watching Harley, God damn it. Like, you talk about in the ring, on the mic. Harley is one of those guys that you believe he believes what it's real, and a champion, a great heel champion. I would say, if you put on, we talked about Jack Briscoe as kind of a babyface champion for the NWA. I think Harley set that standard for a heel NWA champion that Flair picked up, But I would love to hear your thoughts on Harley, Chad, for sure.
Oh, Harley was a guy that I put on my list, 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 times where I scratched them out, and I was like, no, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 2. Oh, he's better than this guy. And yeah, like he's the guy that, in my opinion, he took whatever he lived in the Jack Briscoe shadow. Like he took the schedule from Jack Briscoe, and he told everybody else, if you were going to be the NWA champion, you have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Work as much as we work.
Nuts.
Yeah, he had to be he had to like, he set the standard. And if you want to nitpick, which if we're not really nitpicking, but Harley Race also had the same match that Ric Flair had.
Yeah.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't matter because it was variations of that match. I mean, sure, you're going to see the knee drop and the headbutt from the top rope.
But you want to see the knee drop.
Exactly.
Yes.
It didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And
but Harley Race just didn't make it on my list, but he really was scratched out a few times on my list where I'm just looking at other people going, come on, Chad. I mean, why is Harley Race not on this fucking list? And the main reason why he wasn't probably in Jack Briscoe's spot was because Jack Briscoe was a babyface.
Right.
And, and he was so over in Tampa. That's the main reason probably why he didn't take over Jack Briscoe's spot.
And here's the big thing, like with Harley Race, it's for me being a fan, it's like you see him being a heel and being the shit fucking guy, and it's like you said, like, I want to fucking do something, but I know I can't fucking take Harley Race. Like, Harley Race is my fucking ass.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna seriously Flair, who I know can, maybe stand a chance against this guy.
When Harley Race was 72, he could whoop my fucking ass.
It sounded like he was eating menthol cigarettes instead of smoking them. and like literally when I worked Vader, like when I worked Vader in like '94, like WCW, and Vader fucked up his finish gimmick. Which it was like that little thing where he picks you up the wheelbarrow thing,
mm-hmm.
and he smacks you down. Where either I twisted or he twisted me, and then I'm laying there and I hear Harley Race just yell out, "Power bomb!" And I just thought, like, well, I ain't fucking this up. I'm taking this power bomb the way it's supposed to be fucking taken, whether or not he kills me or not. And then I remembered he just paralyzed the guy a couple years ago doing a power bomb. Yeah, but Harley Race was great. Like he was, I can't believe that I got to be in the ring or around Harley Race. I would have never thought that. Like a lot of stuff that I look back in my career, like even the whole meeting Ric Flair stuff, I didn't think anything of it because I was working there.
Right.
But now I'm just like, wow, fuck, I got to work with Harley Race.
That's amazing.
There's a whole bunch of guys that would never say that.
Well, and here's the big thing. Like, I don't know if you remember, Mick Foley talks about it, where when he's facing Vader, like he's supposed to hit Vader with a fucking shovel, And he's like, I don't know if I want to hit him so hard. If fucking Harley, like, if you don't go out there and hit him with everything you have, when you come back here, I'm going to fucking hit you. I have. Like, all right, man.
Here we go.
Yeah, I just watched some Vader New Japan stuff from '88 a couple of days ago. He used to kill them guys.
Mm-hmm.
Ric Flair talks about went over to Japan and was worried about the fucking NWA title. He took fucking Harley with him because he knew Harley wouldn't fuck around.
Well, he took Piper to Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Like, god damn, like this dude.
So, Chad, who's next on your list?
Where we at, 5?
I think you might be at 5 because I am.
Yeah, I'm at 5. But at 5, I'm going to go with, I don't know. I have reserves about where he should be placed at, but he had to be in the top 10. So I put him in the middle just because I know it's going to be subjective. I put on Steve Austin.
You can't argue. He's dancing around my 10, but you can't argue with that. I mean,
no.
Inflation being what inflation is, you got to say either he or Hogan are the biggest draws ever. And I'm not a fucking economist, so I don't know. But Austin, he drew. He captured the imagination of the fans. He, depending on what his physical condition was, he always adapted to what his in-ring style needed to be. And yeah, I mean, I can totally see that.
The one box that he didn't check off for me, like totally, was longevity. Because of the fact that he started 91. Right. And probably his last run was, around 91. 2001. And he came back and made the appearances. So that just basically, you crawled across the finish line for 20 years. So, you know what I mean? That's the only thing that put him over on the thing, because I'm like, God, the guy made a ton of money. And, he did big business, and he elevated people and the quality opponents and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, he checks all the boxes, but where do I put him?
Right. And he didn't, it's funny because he has this style almost like Rocky where it literally doesn't matter how good the match was, because he was so good and he was such a natural and he was so charismatic that you were still along for the ride the whole time.
Yeah, it was never about the match.
Right.
None of them matches were ever about the match, because none of them guys were waking up the next morning and checking to see if Meltzer gave it a 5 stars or whatever. They didn't give a fuck. It's what the people said.
Mm-hmm.
And not even that, but like Austin was like, I don't give a fuck if you give me a 1 star. My bank account says that it was a fucking 5 star.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Because and another thing, well, I'll be honest and tell you right now that The Rock's not on my list. And the reason why The Rock's not on my list is because Steve Austin never really left the business. When he left the business, he left the business. He didn't leave the business to go to do other shit.
Right.
Like whatever his Hollywood stuff, that's the Hogan stuff. That it never really materialized. The Rock went on to go to Hollywood, and he became a humongous star, and now he's not coming back to the business. That always, to me, I have a problem with that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Rock is a movie star. Hogan and Austin were wrestlers in movies.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And Austin always knew where his bread was buttered. Like, if he needs to pay his cable bill because he got the TNA pay-per-view tonight, and he can just always call it, I need to get a job, doing something. Yeah. Steve Austin, to me, Steve Austin set all kinds of box records and box office records, and I think he came along right before The Rock did, honestly. And they both played great parallels upon themselves as rivals and all, but I think at the end of the day, it was because Steve Austin had more lungs and longevity than The Rock did, then that's why I put Steve Austin in my list.
Well, and we talked about Steamboat and Savage earlier about it being, people calling it the greatest WrestleMania match, et cetera, et cetera. I would say, to be honest, for me personally, I think Bret and Austin is better than Steamboat and Savage. Bret and Austin at WrestleMania 13 is my second favorite. My favorite Mania match, honest to God, is Shawn and Taker at 25. But my second favorite Mania match is Austin and Bret at 13. Like, that match it's visceral. It at that time in that company, it was unheard of. And, to me, that cements it, with Steve Austin.
And what was the other match you said? Was it Steamboat
Savage, Austin, Bret, and then Shawn and Taker.
Well, I'm in the minority at all by being a guy that, like, I've already talked about it. I never thought the Steamboat Savage match was that great because it just looked like it could have been done with ballerinas. it was so choreographed. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't good. Yeah, it was great. Like, for watching it live and you see the thing and all, but when you watch it and you see it on tape, you're just like, what? He's just going, oh my God, he's doing this. You can nowadays, hindsight being 2020, clearly you can pick it apart nowadays.
Well, and I'm sure, but I was going to say, I'm sure you more than me, obviously, because you're a worker, you can see a lot more of that than I can. But, so definitely Austin is worthy of being in a 10 of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Kyle, you're next.
It's going to be, this is my last one because the other ones have been knocked off the list.
Okay.
For everyone needs to know, Ric Flair is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Harley Race is number 2. So my number 3, one and the only, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
And you know what's funny is Shawn is my second favorite of all time, but he's not even in this 10. Really? I don't even have him in this 10. As good as he was, as fantastic as he was. But go ahead, Kyle. This is your pick, brother.
People. How do I want to put this? People sit there and they downplay Shawn's career because WWF was in a downturn during that time. But I'm on that mindset of, if Shawn hadn't been as good as he was, where would the WWF have been?
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, at that time, you're talking 95, 96.
Not only that, but the fact is that if we talk from Shawn Michaels from the start to 98 when he went out, that may be one thing. But we're talking about Shawn Michaels coming back after 4 years and then going on to have an amazing, second half of his career where,
Agreed.
And he did.
Shawn's demons have been fucking discussed plenty of times. We don't need to go into it. But the fact is, he came back with a changed attitude and helped put over guys and fucking, had an amazing second half of his career.
In my opinion, with Shawn Michaels,
and I'm not. Go ahead, Chad.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know we were talking over each other.
No, it's cool.
In my opinion, I'm not discrediting anything Shawn Michaels did in the ring whatsoever. Like, he was actually penciled in, and I was going to preface it by saying he's one of the guys that I don't like personally.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he might belong in there. But he also, at the same time, he had his timing was bad. To me, it also resembles the Bret Hart stuff because he was a top guy when the business was bad. So people pointed the finger at him. Like, this is why the business is bad, kind of thing. And right. I just don't think that he did enough for the business. I mean, if I don't want to say that he wasn't deserving in your list, because he definitely is if it's your list. But in my opinion, I don't think he did enough for the business to be anywhere near the top 10. But I did write him in as a performer. Absolutely. Seriously. I mean, I'd be fucking stupid. To not, pencil in Shawn Michaels as a performer, because your criteria was bell to bell. Well, Shawn Michaels was probably the first guy I thought of.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things Vince has always said about Shawn. And, it is what it is. Vince is presented as Vince by his company the way he wants Vince to be presented. But he always said that Shawn was a pain in the ass until he went through the curtain. And then when he went through the curtain, he gave me exactly what I wanted him to do. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that too,
And again, like I said, I understand where you guys are coming from, but like I said, I think a lot of it also speaks to the fact of him coming back in 2002 and him changing his, I guess, attitude or whatever.
Oh yeah, that second fat chapter of his career is definitely worthy of noting. As far as him putting guys over and stuff. I mean, I've heard some stories from, Greg Helms or whoever that maybe this Christian thing isn't as steadfast as Shawn says it is, but regardless, whatever, but yeah, definitely deserves to be in the conversation at least. Aaron fell off at some point. I don't even see him anymore. So Chad, that means you get to go next.
I got next. What number are we on? 4?
I'm on 5, but I have 2 left that nobody else has brought up yet.
Well, then you haven't said them yet, because I already said Austin, and that's my 5.
Okay.
So my number 4 is I'm going with an old friend of mine who lives in Amarillo, Texas.
Oh, God damn it, me too.
And he's going to bring out Sabu next week on TV. And yeah,
and buddy,
I'm going with
the same page.
What's that?
We are on the same page. He was my next guy too.
I'm going with Terry Funk, and it's not even because of the amount of championships that he's held, because what was he, the NWA champion? Twice maybe? If he was twice,
2 times, yeah,
whatever, yeah. But I mean, that was in the 70s. But just what he's done for the business.
Oh yeah,
you can't. There's nobody that I even look up to more in the business than Terry Funk, because he don't give a shit if you were the guy that's putting the ring up. If you walked over to him and said, Terry, how do I put this ring post up straight? He'd be like, what you gotta do, son? And he would tell you. Like, he would have time for you. He wouldn't just go like, oh, I'm Terry Funk.
Mm-hmm.
And plus he headlined. He did the same thing Jack Briscoe did. Although he did it on a smaller schedule, but he did it his way. He headlined all the territories as the NWA champion and made money, and his impact and his quality of opponents. He checked all the boxes, in my opinion.
And much to what you were saying earlier about, first of all, giving back to the business. And then, I mean, educate me here, because I can't. Terry has as far as career span goes, do he or Lawler have the longest longevity?
Terry.
I was going to say it's got to be Terry or Jerry.
I think it's by 4 years.
Okay.
I think because Lawler started in I think 72.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Terry started in 68, 69 or something like that.
Okay. So I mean, you talk about variety of opponents, variety of fucking decades, and putting guys over and making stars and having good matches and having good promos. I mean, that's why, like I said, I mean, Terry is definitely definitely up there for me. He is.
Terry Funk is one of those guys that, like I said, I didn't see his stuff until way later.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two moments that made me go back and watch a lot of Terry Funk stuff. The one is during, I think it's like 97 or 98, when they're doing Shotgun Saturday Night and they're having the whole Chainsaw Charlie versus Mick Foley thing.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Boston is like, the hottest guy in the fucking company is like, well, I don't know if I want to face fucking Terry Funk, because he's a tough motherfucker. But like the fact of watching that Beyond the Ropes or Beyond the Mat, thank you. When he's sitting there and he's talking to that fucking knee doctor, and he's like, you need surgery in your knee. He's like, well, if I don't get it, how long can I go without it? Can I wrestle? He's like, you shouldn't be able to fucking walk around now.
And that's a love for your business. That's a love for what you do.
I've seen it, man. I've seen it. I've seen Terry in the hotel lobbies in the morning when they offered breakfast and we all met down there. It wasn't like we had like a staff meeting or anything. It's just that we all took advantage of the fact they were offering free breakfast, mm-hmm. and we would all meet down there. And he would literally walk like he was broken, like his knees were all fucked up, and it was just the way it was. But as soon as the bell rang, fuck
yeah, and that's what I was about to say. A testament to that is exactly what you just said. That guy is a fucking professional. If I
was at a bar and I started a fight with this guy, and then I saw him try to walk at me, and I go, "What the fuck are you going to do, old man?" And then all of a sudden, oh my God, this guy's gonna, his knees work all of a sudden. This guy's gonna beat the shit out of me.
And to sit there and hear fucking Steve Richards tell a story about like that three-way match at Barely Legal, and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing in this match, and for fucking Terry Funk to be like, you got this, Stevie, like, like for him to give back, like.
And this is a question for Chad that I mean, eventually one day I was going to ask it on the 2300 pod, but since we're talking about Terry right now, do you think that ECW would have been able to achieve what it achieved without him?
Without Terry?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a very good question. I'd rather show you my Suburban Commando videotape. Because, wow, this is a pretty.
Okay, we'll save it for the 2300 a couple of years down the line if you want. But yeah,
I mean, Terry Funk was I'm gonna guess that Terry Funk was probably a cheap fit for Gilbert. That Gilbert could probably get him on a cheaper rate, and plus he was already familiar with him, so he's like, why not go with the program that we're already doing? So we'll stick with that and see how it works. But honestly, at that time, wrestling was terrible. Wrestling was awful.
You're not
like
lying.
all the independents were terrible, as we're chronologically talking about on the 2300 of TV shows. They're all ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, maybe Terry Funk was just the right guy at the right time. But I wouldn't say Terry Funk was probably the end all be all. It could have been somebody else. Just say, what if Todd Gordon made a deal with the Sheik,
right?
or Hanson, whatever. But that wasn't going to happen, clearly. But yeah, that's a great question. You never know.
And we will get to it on the 2300 pod. Kyle, who was next for you, buddy?
I don't have a fucking list.
Oh, you're done? You're out?
Done.
I've only got one left. And it is normally a person whose name we don't mention on the show just because we don't want to get deep in the weeds as far as conversation about the end of his life goes. But I actually have Chris Benoit at number 5 on my list. I think
I ain't got a problem with that.
I think Benoit was. I don't know. I have times when I'm watching wrestling where I don't know if I think Benoit achieved if he got better than Dynamite or not. Like there's times in my mind where I'm like, man, he got better than Dynamite. He got there, but he is on my list. He is on my 10. He is number 5. Chris Benoit.
I think that Benoit got a better than Dynamite because Benoit learned how to not hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And learned how to not hurt people on purpose. Dynamite has a reputation for being careless. Not that I've worked him, but I've heard stories about him being careless.
Mm-hmm.
And Benoit with me was I couldn't even believe it. I literally couldn't even believe it. And we'll get to that on the 2300 because it comes up when I work Benoit on ECW. But it's a whole different story. Like it's professionalism. I wouldn't even say it's attitude or any of that shit. It's professionalism. And Benoit learned how to just be a fucking wrestler.
Yeah. Because
he realized he had to do it tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know? And Dynamite Kid didn't give a fuck if this other guy had to do it tomorrow. I'm going to dump him on his head. And Dynamite Kid was brutal, man.
Oh, God. Yeah. But Benoit, I mean, you talk about believability and almost to his detriment. I mean, when you talk about his brain damage and stuff. But, and that's another episode. That's why I almost hesitated to put him on the list because I don't want to get into the weeds about all that. But you talk about,
I don't even give a shit about that. That to me is gone. It's over. Mm-hmm. It is what it is, and we've kind of already like closed the coffin on that case, or whatever. And I'm not gonna hold a grudge against Candido. I mean, against Benoit for what he did, based upon his situation. But his body of work speaks for itself, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about him as a human being.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, like I said, he's after Benoit. I have Brett, Terry, which we've talked about, Henning and Angle. So, and then Kyle said he's tapped out. So, Chad,
you guys knocked shit off my list.
Chad, how many do you have left?
I think I have 4.
Damn.
If my last one was Austin,
your last one was Funk.
Okay, then I got 3.
And we already discussed that you're going to discuss Flair when you get to number 1.
Well, I don't even have to discuss them if we were running out of time. But my other 2 is my number 3 is I have Dusty, and then my number 2 is I have Lawler.
All right, so we discussed Lawler because he was, I think he was my number 8. Dusty was definitely, and again, like we said before, we all used kind of different. I guess we kind of, we converged on criteria, which I think Chad had a much more comprehensive list than we did. Kyle, you fucking schlub.
Well, I half-assed it tonight. What can I say?
Whatever. It's cool. No, Dusty, and I know, Chad, you probably haven't heard the earlier episodes of the We Can't Wrestle show, but Dusty is, and again, this list was not my favorites. This was who I thought were the best workers. Dusty's in my top 5 favorites. I mean, promo, charisma, Dusty fucking Rhodes, man.
Well, Dusty wouldn't even be in my top 5 of my favorites.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, yeah. See, I love Dusty Rhodes. I love Dusty.
Terrible.
That guy.
I mean, come on. I mean, the only person worse than him is the guy that he would want to team up with in a blood feud, and that's Jimmy Valiant.
Oh, God.
They both do 2 things. It's like the bionic elbow, and as soon as you get hit, you look like you have a seizure. They both. Yeah, come on. Like, Dusty can't even take, like, getting hit in the back by Paul Jones with a stupid little pool cue or whatever the fuck it is, his little cane. And Dusty's looking like he's a fish out of water. And Jimmy Valiant was the same way. But that wasn't my criteria. It was Dusty checked all the boxes. His promos, his matches, his opponents that he worked, and the money he drew. His booking, I didn't include that because let's be honest.
I mean, that was a bit repetitive.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of holes in that booking theory that Dusty had, but for at least 10 years, Dusty was on top, like number one. If it wasn't Andre in the After magazines, it was Dusty.
Right.
We do a fucking nice in-depth look at his career. I don't remember what episode it is, but
it's way back when.
Go back.
It's back when these shows sounded like shit.
I was skinnier then.
Oh, and the audio was terrible. But anyway, yes. I would say Dusty.
As far as Lawler goes, I will defend Lawler all day long.
Me too.
As far as every box that I wanted to check, he probably checked it twice.
Mm-hmm. Lawler is, and I really, there are times, and again, so at times, I don't know about you guys, but at times my wrestling fandom is fluid. Like there's times where I'm like, oh, this guy's the best, or this guy's the best, or whatever I'm in the mood for at the time. But there are actually times where, to me, Lawler's the best ever. And there's other times where there's other guys or whatever my mood's fitting. But I mean, Lawler, like you said, Chad, he checks every box twice over. Lawler he was so good. He was so good. And he was good at everything you needed to be in wrestling, in the ring, out of the ring, behind the scenes. And that's a whole nother episode, just talking about Lawler. But
I was just watching a match the other day of Lawler, him and Ken Patera. Mm-hmm. Dude, he got a great match out of Ken Patera.
Jesus.
I mean, who else can say that?
A Van. Ken Patera and a Van have a pretty good match on Tuesday Night Titans, but yeah, shit.
I watched that match and I'm like, well, goddamn, Ken Patera could kill Lawler, if he wanted to. But Lawler's paying him, so he's got to sell for him. And I'm like, God damn, if he ain't fucking, he's bumping around like he's a pinball for Lawler. And actually, Lawler put him over in that match because that was where he dropped the belt. And then Lawler had to come back and beat him. And that's when you see the Lawler video of him killing Patera. I Am the Warrior. Mm-hmm. It's where he beats up Patera and Jesse Ventura. And it's almost like a Jesus Christ.
Well, and to speak to the credit of fucking Jerry Lawler, like the fact is that, what was the Nation Chamber going into WrestleMania 27 when he has that match against The Miz? Like, you fucking, like, I was on the edge of my seat, like, come on, fucking Lawler, you can do this, man. You can win the fucking title.
Yeah, I mean, Lawler was always the guy that you could never discredit. Because even when he was 100 years old, or now that he's 100 years old, you could always find a way to put him over. Because I remember many, many years ago, I was listening to the radio, and I called into a radio show, and I was competing for I was going to get on a bus that goes to Hooters, and then after we go to Hooters, we were going to a Monday Night Raw show at the arena in Baltimore, and I took my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, well, I really don't want to go to the show. I just want to go to Hooters. And then we got on the bus and we went to the show, and we got there. It was Lawler's birthday, and they asked him if he had one match he could wrestle. Who would he want to wrestle? And he said, "I want to wrestle Ric Flair." And I was literally the only guy in the building who jumped up and started dancing in the aisles, going, "Oh my God, I'm going to see Ric Flair against Jerry Lawler." It's only happened one time before.
Oh my God, and I'm glad that your night at fucking Hooters ended better than like the time that I went to Hooters. Because hold on, let's share a story here. So for my bachelor party, for everybody needs to know, I'm fucking married and divorced twice. One more.
I was going to say, Kyle, which bachelor party?
One more, and I'll be a fucking blues player. So it is what it is. but fucking no. So we fucking go to see Social Distortion at Pierre's, which is a club here in this area, and we go to Hooters after, and then someone says strip club. Never, under any circumstances, go to a strip club where you know strippers there and tell them party, because they will pull you on stage, beat the fuck out of you, rip your fucking underwear and your shirt off, and you'll wake up the next day going, the fuck happened?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But
so I think that about does it.
I want to say real quick before we go, Ed, it's been an honor, man, to talk to you. Thank you for fucking everything that you've done to entertain us wrestling fans. Hopefully this is the last time we get to talk, because like I said, I've enjoyed it.
And as it goes, that is what it is. We have discussed the best workers of all time, our opinions, and of course the opinion of Chad Austin from ECW. And of course, and Kyle, you and I will attest to this, check out the 2300 pod. If you have not.
If you've enjoyed Chad Austin here tonight, like I said, go subscribe and listen to the 2300, where it is a deep dive week by week of ECW.
And boy, these opening weeks are rough, buddy. These opening weeks are rough.
I'm gonna tell you, Nate. I've been following along, man, with the podcast, watching. Ooh, buddy. Feel bad for you at all, man. I think Chad and Aaron have gone to bed for the evening.
Yes,
so
they have.
It is us two here at the very end. For all those guys who are still listening, Nate is smoking. I'm smoking, so we're gonna fucking keep going for a few seconds here and kind of just talk.
I was just about to say, I guess as far as the We Can't Wrestle podcast, we're the two best workers in the business.
We'll go 3 hours. I don't give a fuck. I want it on the record right here, right now, that I've been drinking since fucking 7:00 tonight, and I haven't passed out, Aaron.
And guys, it is 12:30 a.m. as we are recording this.
So, motherfucker, don't talk shit to me. I'm like the Energizer Bunny.
But that being said, Kyle, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it as always.
It's been an honor. Like I said, it's been very cool to talk to Chad Austin and hear his take. Like I said, very, very few times do we get to hear. I'm just going to say this right now. Like, I know that there's plenty of other podcasts out there that you could listen to and stuff, and I get it, and they have guests on and stuff and everything else. But if nothing else, guys, I hope you've seen tonight that, like with Chad Austin, he's not PC.
Nope.
Not the line. Like, this dude is going to tell you how it fucking is from his viewpoint. Like
when he shit on my Ric Flair being number 7.
This is true. It's been very cool to have a guy who has been in the ring with some of the greatest of all time and been around some of the greatest of all time to be able to, do the 2300 podcast and do, the show with us and stuff and everything else. And I do want to say a quick shout out to the Motley Soup. You guys are doing a lot of cool shit now.
Buddy.
A lot of live videos. They are very fun. They're very cool.
Check out the Motley Soup podcast.
for all your non-wrestling stuff, like I said, and go to their Facebook page, man, because they're on like almost every weekend, and they're doing stuff that's like they're doing the what's the challenge you guys are doing now? The couples challenge?
The Adventure Challenge, yes. AdventureChallenge.com. If you go there right now, AdventureChallenge.com, make sure you go to AdventureChallenge.com/Motley Soup, because that throws us some monies. But if you are in a relationship, they have one for that, which Kendall and I are doing now. Or if you're a single person, just with buddies or whatever, they have friend challenges. They have all kind of different things you can do, and we're progressing through that. We did the first one this week, and it's fun. It's exciting. It's a cool thing to do. They give you, okay, so in this challenge, you're going to spend this much money, this much time, whether it has food involved, whether it has going outdoors involved, et cetera, et cetera. It's really cool. It's, like Kendall bought the book. I was like, what is this? What is this I have to do? And then once we got into it, I was like, this is fucking cool. It's just something we can do together and enjoy with our viewers and listeners. And we really appreciate you guys. Speaking of listeners, if you have not yet joined the We Can't Wrestle Facebook group, do that. We're trying to get to 400. We're actually at 302, I think. We're 98 away. We've gained 50-something members in the month of October. We have 5 days left as we're recording this to get to 400, and I'm going to give away a replica Ring of Honor World Television Championship, which Archie Mitchell, I know, will do a randomizer for me for that. But seriously, guys, join the communities, the Motley Soup, 2300, the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Get in there, have some fun. We do some great shit. It's really a blast. And I will say this, Kindle, of course, Motley Soup, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as the We Can't Wrestle podcast, Aaron and Kyle have been here with me since the beginning. And I know they will both be here with me, even though Aaron signed off an hour ago. They'll be with me to the end of this shit. And we're having fun, and it's great. It's a great experience. And We Can't Wrestle at 2300 is, for me as a wrestling fan, it's the joy of my life.
Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you, like, being a wrestling fan, to sit there and get an insight, into this. Like, seriously, guys, I know we're going a little long here, but I want to say this. Like, think about it. If you guys go to like the 2300 Facebook page right now, you can ask Chad Austin, a guy who has been in the ring, any questions you've ever wanted to ask a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Chad Austin is a pretty good dude. Like, that's the thing I gotta say. Like, there's many podcasts out there, but I'm gonna say right now, with the Motley Soup, 2300, with World Championship Customs, with
the Asylum,
the Training Chops page, you are never gonna meet a better group of people.
Absolutely. And that being said, we'll do our sign off. Kyle, say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Like I said, go show Archie Mitchell some love if you need any customs made. This dude busted his ass to make a Saba Simba. Go check it out, man. It is pretty fucking badass.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, brother Archie Mitchell, Kyle Armory, Aaron Maxson, and of course, Chad Austin. And we will see you next time around on the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And I'm just going to leave it with this. The last words is, it's going to be a doozy, because we're going to check out UWF.
Oh. We need to stop letting Aaron pick this shit.
It's definitely going to be fun, though. It's the, what is it, the Beach Brawl or Brawl something. The Blackjack Brawl. That's what it is. The Blackjack Brawl is our next shit coming down in the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time around.